Hi, everyone. I did fuck up something at the last minute, but that's okay. We can fix that. Live. I'm supposed to do this. There we go. There we go. Welcome, everyone, to the pre-show. Look, if you fuck up something live, it's okay. It's okay. It's part of the process. Welcome to the pre-show of the actual, factual best video games of 2024, presented by me, opinionated by me. And if you don't agree with me, you are wrong, and you're bad at games, and you don't like games, and I'm sorry that you're wrong, but you're wrong. Because you're wrong. This year had a lot of amazing video games. And even though I am doing the biggest list I ever did, Dirty Wolf, this is not the time for you to keep disconnecting and reconnecting your stream. Okay, it is not the time. Not the time for this. Even though I'm doing the biggest list I've ever done for this, there's still so many games that I didn't have on there, and where I felt bad that I didn't have on there because I like the games, or because nope, those are silenced, or because I just felt they should have some sort of mention somewhere. So I figured this pre-show section is a little opportunity for me to talk about those games and to put more games in the spotlight, and maybe also let you know why some games aren't on the list. And yes, I will give away that some of these games, obviously they're not going to be on the list because they're here, but I felt like some of these needed to be talked about, and they needed to be shared for me, for my brain. So I have a list of a whole lot of games that didn't make my list of my top 25 ultimately, but that I wanted to highlight. And I'm going to start with a broad category of video games, which I've subtitled Early Access Leavers or Graduates. And this is a problem for my brain in terms of this, but I also feel like this is a problem for a lot of games as a whole. Some games, like Baldur's Gate 3 being the perfect example, have started out in early access and have gotten their full release and their full flowers during their full release. But so many games release in early access, get a lot of hype, the hype dies down, and then they do their full release, and the game never actually gets the hype it deserves because they already kind of blew their shot, right? They did it. They published themselves, they got all the attention, and now it's no longer cool to cover these games, or people have lost interest in these games because they played them a lot already. And here's some of my examples that came out this year officially, but didn't make my list because I felt like the hype for me in my brain was already gone. I've already gotten my fill of these games, and in some cases they just didn't change enough for me to go, wow, that's a different game now. Does that mean there are no games on my list that came out of early access this year? No, there are some of those. However, these games are the ones that I felt like mentioning anyway, but they didn't make my top 25. I highlighted here, I have 7 Days to Die, which has been in early access for like a decade. And actually, when they announced that it was coming out of early access, I was like, holy shit, I never expected this game to just like actually launch. I was just okay with this game always being in early access. But here we go. 7 Days to Die. Dope game. I love 7 Days to Die. However, I've played 7 Days to Die so much that it's just a game for me. It's just a game for me. And I feel like the early access, like the launch out of early access, didn't come with enough changes for me to go, wow, it's such a different game now. You know, I need to talk about this. I need to share this. 7 Days to Die is a dope game, but ultimately I feel like it oversaturated itself in my brain because I played it several times over the last 10 years. Another one that I want to mention, Satisfactory, another really, really good game, but I've played it a bunch before, and I feel like the release from early access didn't change enough for me to go, wow, it's such a different game now. Maybe the end game is different, but the whole experience I've had playing that game again, it didn't feel like they changed enough for me to go, cool, this is different. I'm going to mute this because I want to know when my friends go live, but not now. Discord, not now. There you go. And another one I want to mention, specifically highlighted here because this was in my top 3 last year, is Shadows of Doubt. Um, Shadows of Doubt is an amazing game, one of my favorite games of all time, not just of last year. But coming out of early access, I've already had my hype moment for this game. I've already been very impressed by this game. It didn't capture me again. It didn't make me go, wow, this game is so vastly different now that it needed to come out of early access. It just felt like an update. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, because they did a bunch of updates, and I really like the 1.0 version of the game. But from what it was last year to what it is now, I don't think enough has changed for me to go, they overhauled this whole game. And I really feel like the early access label kind of killed the hype for this for a lot of people, because like, well, it just came out of early access, and it came out of early access with kind of like a fizzler patch where it was like, you know, they didn't change a lot. And again, I think it's fair because they did a bunch of smaller patches over the course of the game's early access lifetime. But the final patch was just another similar small patch, and it didn't change a whole lot where I went like, wow, what a different game now. I love it. It's one of my favorite games ever. But it kind of already blew its load and got what it got. That's just one entry in my honorable mentions list. Continuing my honorable mentions, and this game is on here because it's a game that I feel like I haven't explored as much as I wanted to. I didn't give it as much time as I wanted to, and it's Tekken 8. I love fighting games. I love the Tekken series, but I couldn't get myself to devote a lot of time to a fighting game this year. I couldn't find it in me to be like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna get good at this game and I'm gonna play a lot of time. And I love Tekken 8. I love the game, and I will always champion the fighting game community because I think fighting games are amazing. I think they're a good way to bond with people. But Tekken is just there because I didn't get to play it a lot, and it honestly doesn't need me to champion it either. Right? It doesn't need me to put it on a list to be like, here's a game you absolutely need to play. So I felt okay leaving this off my main list and putting it in my honorable mentions, which is fine. Same with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I think Dragon Ball Sparking Zero was a good game. Ultimately, though, it felt like a spectacle fighter in a way. It felt like it had a lot of flash to it and not a lot of substance to it. And a lot of people like the game. I also like the game, but again, it kind of just got into that territory where I felt like I didn't want to invest time into getting better at it. And I've seen people like Minister Gold play Tekken 8 and Dirty Wolf play Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and getting really good at those games. I couldn't bring myself to do that and put time into them because I was focused on other things, and that's fair. We don't need to do that with every game. So ultimately, there we go. They're off here. And speaking of games I didn't put enough time into, Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop came out like in like early December, and I love that game. It's dope, but I just didn't get to play it enough before I started making this list. And I, again, you have to put time into your things. It's one of those games that I can absolutely see if we do a retrospective of the year where I go, oh my god, that game is so good. Why was that not in my top 25? Well, because I didn't get to play it a lot, because I didn't get to put the time into it that I think it deserved to put it on this list. But I think it's unique enough, it's cool enough that I want to highlight it because it's, in terms of uniqueness, it is one of the most unique games of the year, in my opinion. It does something. Yes, it takes from Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, and it takes from a couple of other games in terms of like inspirations, which it wears proudly on its sleeve. But it's such a cool implementation of like style, world building, and execution of the play that I fucking love that game, and I want to play more of it. I just didn't get a chance to do it before I was making this list, so it fell off. And it's cool enough. I think people should check that out because it's brutal. It's like, honestly, as far as the game goes, it throws you into the deep end. It goes, here's your manual, here's your tasks, go ahead, and it gives you a timer, and you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail a lot. You're gonna restart a lot. But overplaying it, you're gonna get better and better and better at the tasks. You're gonna have to look at the manual less often, and at some point, it's almost like actual training to become a mechanic. And the reward in that game isn't necessarily, there are skins, there are meta progression things, but that isn't necessarily the reward. The reward is you getting better at the job that you're doing in the game, and that feels so cool and rewarding. Hell yeah, love that game. By the way, I'm doing these out of order from how they are in my list here. So if you see me looking around, it's because I want to have a flow here into these, uh, where I just present them and talk about. Which is actually a good point into the next one. Fields of Mistria is not on my top 25. I'm very sorry. I know a lot of people love that game. It is a good game. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. But my problem with Fields of Mistria is that it feels... There's so many Stardew Valley likes that I am oversaturated with Stardew Valley likes. And I don't want to play. I said that wrong. I want to play. But it gets to that point where you look at a game and it goes, oh, it's Stardew Valley like. And you start, you get the game and you get into it. And I know there's some things that other games don't do. I know it has its own unique qualities, but for me, it was one of those games where like I like it. It is a good game. I actually prefer it over Stardew Valley. So, and in fact, I think it's one of the better ones in the genre in general. But just because it sits in that market of games that are just so similar to each other in a lot of ways, I feel so I can't get myself to get hyped about it because I've already played this game in a way, right? I've already played this game in one way or another. And speaking of games I've already played in one way or another, other games that didn't make my list, here's another whole genre, Vampire Survivor likes. There's a whole lot of Vampire Survivor likes, and I love Vampire Survivors. But you play one, and you kind of play them all in a way, right? There's so very few innovation in them that, yeah, they might do their own unique thing. They might do their own cool thing there. But where's the innovation? Where's the change? And some of them that do something unique, it's only one thing, or they do one cool thing and then they miss out something else that I really like about Vampire Survivors. And I haven't found the one yet where I'm like, this game gets it on all the same levels that Vampire Survivor does. I can give examples. Halls of Torment, which also fits into that category of early access levers, where it just didn't change enough from early access to release. But Halls of Torment, it's a really fucking good game. I love it to bits. But it doesn't have the cool sound effects that Vampire Survivors does. It doesn't have the fusion of things that Vampire Survivors does. Entropy Survivors, I absolutely love that game as well. It does something unique with making it so that you have your robot and your frog that each get their own unique skills, and you can modify these skills. It has cool co-op, but in the end, I'm just playing Vampire Survivors again. The game Sammy reminded me of, Spell Brigade, is another one of those where it has its own thing. It does. Oh. It sounded like someone was yelling. Where was I? Yeah, Spell Brigade. Like, it does its own cool thing with the elements and the fusion of the elements, but it's still the same skill in that way, right? I feel like it misses out on something that made Vampire Survivors Vampire Survivors. And the final one that I've written down here is Bloodshed, which we played recently, which actually does something unique. It combines the Doomer shooter with Vampire Survivors, and it actually has the Gamba thing with the chest opening. It's a really good game. I love that game as well. Two reasons that is an honorable mention. A, I didn't play enough of it. It's pure and simple because of when it came out. And the other one is, it still feels like Vampire Survivors. It doesn't make me go like, wow, that's crazy, that's unique. So that's a whole category right there. A whole category of games that didn't make it. And to do another whole category of games, just so I have that one out of the way as well, remakes and remasters and re-releases. Again, same with the early access things. In my brain, a lot of those games already had their time to shine. They've already had their moment in the sun. And ultimately, I'm just playing the same game again, just with a new coat of paint. Examples here, Tomb Raider, Soul Reaver, Marvel vs. Capcom. These games, yes, they changed the way they look. They might have even put in some changes, some patches, and made the games play a little better or a little different or change the control scheme. But ultimately, it's still the same game. I'm still playing Soul Reaver from 20 years ago. I'm still playing Tomb Raider that I was playing in high school. I'm still playing Marvel vs. Capcom. Yeah, they put in a couple of bug fixes, but it's the same game. And as much as I like that game, I don't know what I just did, but that tapped out. I don't think that should be on a Game of the Year list because even though they came out this year, they've already been out, they've already been there, they've already built up fan bases. People can get hype over Marvel vs. Capcom or Tomb Raider or Soul River. I am too. I love these games so much. But they're not games from this year. And in my brain, and if anyone else picks any of these as their game of the year, I would not blame you for that. But in my brain, these games already had their time to shine. And ultimately, they didn't even change a lot. It's just like, here's the game upscaled, or here's the game with slightly better textures. Cool, okay. They capped that whole category off with one final game, Silent Hill 2. I love Silent Hill 2. I love the original, I love the remake, but it's ultimately still a remake. It's the same game as I loved all those years ago. It's the same story. It just looks better. It plays a heck of a lot better. If I'm ever going to replay Silent Hill 2, it's going to be the new one. I'm never going to play the old one again. Ever. I see no more reason for me to play the old Silent Hill 2. But I've already played Silent Hill 2, and I love that game. But all the hype I had for that game, I had because I loved the other game, because I played the other game, and I carried it over into the new game. And I can't, again, if anyone puts it on their Game of the Year list, I fucking respect you for that, but I can't bring myself to get hyped enough for that game. When I'm compared to other games that came out this year, every time I put another game over it or under it, I was like, well, I'm more hyped for this game because this game was new to me. I hadn't already played this game. I hadn't already thought about this game, talked about this game, hyped this game. Less stressful as a survival horror, almost because you aren't fighting the controls or cameras. But yeah, that's why I will never play the original again, because this game at least is updated with modern controls, modern graphics, modern system. I don't have to jump through hoops to make it work. It just plays now. So it's the definitive version of Silent Hill to me. I love Silent Hill. I think as far as remakes go, this is one of the best remakes. I love the Resident Evil 2 remake. I love the Resident Evil 3 and 4 remakes. They're dope. The Dead Space remake was so carefully crafted, but this one is the best remake I've played of a video game like that, right? Where we're remaking a survival horror game. It's the best remake. But, holy shit. Discord, not now. But, I've already had my hype for this game. Two more games I want to mention before we go on to the main show. And look at that, I almost spent half an hour doing this, as I predicted. Two more games I want to mention before we move on to the main show. Actually, three. I'm cheating. Space Marine 2. I played Space Marine 2. I love Space Marine 2. I love the Warhammer universe. But ultimately, what kept it off of my list is it is a sequel to Space Marine 1, a game that I know is getting a lot of love and a lot of attention from people. But Space Marine 1 for me was a game that I bought on release, and then I regretted buying it because I bought it for multiplayer, and the multiplayer fucking sucked. And it took a while before I went into the main campaign, and the main campaign for it felt like a Gears of War thing. The controls were clunky. I did not like the main Space Marine 1 game. Until a few years later when I played it again, I was like, okay, I loved Space Marine because of the story, because I get to be in the Warhammer universe, but I still felt like the controls were shit, and I couldn't get hyped for that. And I'm not looking at the Space Marine 1 with rose-tinted glasses that a lot of other people do. And Space Marine 2 for me is a lot of the same things, where I love being in the Warhammer universe, but it ultimately feels like a wave shooter, and it just didn't get me. It didn't capture me in the ways that a lot of those games do and should, and feel like it is a good game. It's somewhere in my top 50. But it just didn't get me. It just didn't grab me in the way it should. And that's the ultimate shame of it, where again, I can recognize that something is a good game. I can look at it and can I love this game. And then I can look at it and go, but it's not my favorite of the year. But I still want to mention it because I think it's a good game. Same with Astrobot. I'm mentioning it now, not on my top 25. I think Astrobot is a really, really good game. It is the culmination of basically Nintendo 64 releasing Super Mario 64, and those games getting made over the years and getting improved over the years. And this is a celebration of that genre, which is something that, besides Mario Odyssey, Nintendo has basically neglected. And I felt like they only made Mario Odyssey because they felt obliged to make another Mario 3D game, and they they never really did a whole lot more with that. And I think Astrobot is dope. I think it's a really, really good game from a genre that I personally have been oversaturated with. And it's another example of I can look at the game and I say, this is a really good game. I love Astrobot. It does a lot of things well. But it's ultimately still just a game that I've already played before in one way or another, just done way, way better. And if I was a massive fan of those kind of games, which I like those kind of games, all right. I like Mario Super 4 and Odyssey and Sunshine. I like those, all right. But if I was a massive fan of those games, yeah, hell yeah, I'd be more excited than this. But when I was making my list, it kept moving down and down and down, and I was like, well, if I have to, because the way I make my list is I literally go, here's two games that I'm comparing to each other. Which one would I delete forever, and which one would I keep? And every time I was like, well, if I delete Astrobot, there's other games that I can play that ultimately give me the same feel. They might not be as good as Astrobot, but it's a genre that's so full of everything else that I don't need this. I don't need this game right now. So that's how that dropped down. And then the final game that I'll mention, and this is getting an honorable mention for a very different reason, Chained Together. It's in that genre of frustratingly difficult game with bad controls and bad mechanics that are meant to be frustrating and are meant to be a challenge. And Chained Together, I had a lot of fun with that, playing it with Bunny Slaughter, not Bunny in chat, with Bunny Slaughter, and I like that game. I love that game. I love the experience more than I like the game itself. But I love the experience so much that I wanted to give that its own honorable mention. You're not on my list. You're not even in my top 50 of the year. But in my terms of memories and moments, oh my god, did I love playing that game? Did I love the moments where, I'm gonna say Bunny, because Bunny's the moments where Bunny and I synced up and without even communicating with each other did the thing, and me annoying them a little bit by purposely going around the wrong way so a chain would get wrapped around. It was an experience that I will cherish, and I will take with me. But ultimately, the game itself is, I'm so sorry, everyone. For those of you who were here last, oh my god, all right, come on, yeah, yes, everyone, it's Chad Howard. Chad Howard, you flew yourself out here last year to my house. How did you even find out where I live? You flew yourself out here last year because you were convinced Starfield was going to win my game of the year, and I like Starfield. You did a good job. I'm a Starfield fan, but you flew yourself out here, and then you got so depressed over not winning and over that situation with I know you went through a lot with your wife and in your personal life, and
It doesn't just work.
I know. I'm so sorry, and he hid in one of my cupboards for the rest of the year. I'm so sorry, Chad Howard. Please pass on through and get yourself a seat somewhere in the audience. I don't know why you're here. I didn't invite anyone to this thing, but thanks for attending. This guy is here again. How does he even know where I live? I still don't get it, but whatever. Anyway, Chained Together was a great experience that I can look at. Like I said, I love this game for the experience it gave me, but I can also look at the game and say this game is not that good, and it doesn't deserve to be on my top 25 list of games in terms of like how much I like them and how good they were. But the memories it gave me, the experience that I got from it was amazing, and I love it. So all the credits to that game. That was my honorable mention. I think I did pretty well with that. I think I got through that pretty freaking well. So glad that we made it through this. Those are a bunch of games that I wanted to rattle off and give their own time. What a star-studded event. Jay, you don't even know the half of it. We apparently we have Chad Howard in attendance. I didn't even invite him, but here he is. Again, how does he even know where I live? I don't know. Yeah, we're all LARPing. Anyway, I have it on good authority that the stage is ready for the awards to begin. So I will move over to the main stage, and then we'll talk about my top 25 games of the year, and we'll start with the bonus DLC of the year entry. So if you all follow me to the main stage, I will see you. I will see you right there.
And here is your host, Seth the Hex.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you for the introduction. I can see that there's still people coming into the crowd and are looking to get seated. So welcome to my top 25 games of the year. I am very excited to be here. We've had a good year of gaming and a lot of successful games, a lot of indie darlings. And special thanks to, I think it was something from London. I actually forgot what it was, but special thanks for me downloading a picture of your stage off of the internet and using it for my own stage, because I couldn't afford a real stage. So thank you for having your pictures on Google, and for me just blatantly pirating and ripping it and repurposing it for my own event with Photoshop edits, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without your photo on Google. As I talked about before we started the pre-show, this year has been a big one for gaming, with a lot of good games releasing, and that ultimately led to me wanting to do the biggest list I've done in terms of game of the year lists, because there were so many games this year, so many good games that I just couldn't get myself to not give a spot on a list. And every time I dropped something off, initially what started as my top 10, every time I dropped something off, I felt bad, and I went, well, I'll just do a top 15 like last year, and I still felt bad. And I made it to top 20, and I still felt bad. And I made it top 25, and I still feel bad for some games not being on this list, because we've had a really, really good year with, honestly, me getting a lot of free games that I'm very fucking grateful for as well. So I also wanted to go all out and get a special stage for us and a special guest host, not just Seth Dags, but Cherry Howell over here. Thank you for introducing me, and for very last minute sending me a voice recording on Discord with an intro. Because we did this last year too, and I was like, well, Cherry, I want to do it again this year. Cherry did it. Thank you, Cherry. And yes, because of the Game Awards and all the side eye to them, I want to start off with my favorite DLC of the year, because I think DLC of the year is something that should be acknowledged. It should just not take the place of games of the year. Okay, DLC and games should not compete together. And while the Game Awards had Shadow of the Erdtree on there, which is a really good DLC. It's honestly, it's like Cyberpunk last year. It's a DLC that's so good, it stands out head and shoulders above most other DLCs that release, and it almost does feel like a whole new game in its own game. But if you want to do that, then make a new game. You're a DLC, you're cheating, because a lot of people love Elden Ring, a lot of people are hyped for Elden Ring, so of course you're gonna get a lot of people to be into the hype here. It's unfair. It took a spot from another game, and I don't want that on my list. I don't want a DLC to take a game off of my list just so that I can hype up a DLC. So, as good as I think Shadow of the Erdtree is, you don't deserve a Game of the Year list spot on a game. You should be on a DLC list. And speaking of DLC of the year, That's not Shadow of the Erdtree. No, it's Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania. My favorite DLC of the year. Yes, I really just needed an excuse to talk about Vampire Survivors, but also, as good as I think Shadow of the Erdtree is, as it's still just Elden Ring in a lot of ways, and Vampire Survivors DLC is also just still Vampire Survivors. But charging $40 for your DLC, which is worth, okay, it's still a big ask. For $5 or for $4, you get so much content in this DLC. It over doubles the shit you have in Vampire Survivors. If you have no other DLC, this adds so much. And not only that, they announced this as a DLC, and they went, 20 characters and this many new weapons. And they lied to you. They lied to you because you get double. How often does a company do that, where they promise you something and they give you fucking double? Every other company would be like, you're getting 40 characters. They would tell you what you're getting because they want you to know how good it is. This kept this as a fucking surprise, and it was such a fucking good surprise. It's such a good DLC. This is the example of what a DLC should be. A love letter to the game it's in, a love letter to the game it's inspired by, and a tribute to the fans by giving the fans a massive surprise for $4. This is what DLC should be. And as much as I love Shadow of the Erdtree, as much as I love Elden Ring, this is the DLC of the year. Head and shoulders above everything else. Like, this, Shadow of the Erdtree, Dredge, everything else, somewhere there. And it made me replay all of Vampire Survivors. It made me go through there. It made me go and get the achievements I was missing, except for 2. It made me get the DLC that I was missing and play through that. And this is exactly what a DLC should be. A DLC should be. A DLC should be. It improves on the game. It adds to the game. It gives you a lot of shit to play around with. It makes the game feel fresh, and it makes you reappreciate the game that it's for. So good job, Vampire Survivors, and good job, Konami, for working with Vampire Survivors and making this a reality. And also, one further tribute to this added so much new music to the game, they had to actually revamp the music selection to accommodate all the soundtracks, which were remasters, original, remakes, new versions of it. This is actually just like, besides the game, this is a compilation of some of the best Castlevania music ever. Like, it is so good for $4. All right. I see that in the meantime, the audience has come into... Yeah, that's what DLC should be, exactly. The audience has entered the room, and I can see we have several familiar faces in attendance. And I didn't just Photoshop this like 10 minutes before I started streaming. See, we have some familiar faces here. Thank you all so much for attending today. And let's just get started with the top 25 actual factual best games of 2024. I do need to go here and open my notes again because I just clicked away from that to swap scenes. Sprout, I was very close to using that Tantan emote instead of Tantan's actual surprise face there. I was very close. So, yes. All right. Notes, thank you. Thank you. Let's go back to this slide because this makes it easier to transition into the next game or into the next slide. My number 25 was almost an honorable mention. I mean, we could ask Homie to make it. I still have the original art. We can cut out the head and then supply Homie. It was almost an honorable mention because in a lot of ways, my number 25 isn't a game. But it had so much impact on my productivity, and I already gave it away, in such a good package that makes me excited for more and for the future of the game, the product, that I had to put it on there. It's Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions. I almost put this as an honorable mention because in a lot of ways I feel like this isn't a game, but the meta game of me getting to dress up my character, getting to make the room look different, having presets now actually is what pushed this into this. If it wasn't for the presets, I think this would have fallen off. But having presets now so that I can play around with different looks for my character without fearing that I delete something and don't get to go back to it. The productivity assisting with me having to-do lists, with me having a timer, it actually is such a good tool just to have running while I work and when I do things, and a reminder to stand up and stretch my legs and take my breaks. And I actually love it. And more than the productivity tool part of it, I love the game where I get to make my character look pretty and live my live out my dreams of being a hot demon girl. And I just appreciate how inclusive this game is with the inclusion of pride flags and non-binary colors and stuff like that. And hell yeah, this is one of those games that just makes me feel good for getting to look the way I want to look in a game. So ultimately, I had to push it in here. And this was the example of a game where it's like every time I pushed it off the list, I was like, but I want it to be in here. I want it to be in here. I want it to be in here. And even when I pushed it off, I kept putting it back in. I want it to be in here. I had it to be in here. It felt so bad to push it out. So number 25. The next game is a game that the first time I saw it, I started memeing on it. I started making fun of it. And then I saw the gameplay pan out over the course of the trailer. And I went, oh, actually, that looks interesting. I want to look at that. I want to check it out. And there was another chatter, Minister Gold, who was like, I'm also interested. And Gold arranged a group. And we played Death Note: The Killer Within. And yes, it's an Among Us inspired Death Note game. Yes, the art looks weird, but the game is fucking amazing. It is. I don't like a lot of the Among Us clones. In fact, I'm lukewarm on Among Us itself as it is, because you always suffer from someone taking over and shouting over people and directing the group. And yes, this game can get there too, but giving the killer a helper and special powers, giving L, the investigator, special powers, making it so that if L gets killed, the investigators lose regardless, having various win conditions in here, all in a way that actually presents itself very nicely. I really like this, and it gives you a lot of customization options in terms of how do you want the game to play out, because some of these, this one is made for 10 players, clearly, and this is also a problem in board games, by the way, that do something similar. Some of these really fall when you go below a certain player count, or when you get to an uneven player count. But the game gives you so many customization options that you can tinker around with. The one critique I have of this game, the one thing that pushed it lower on the list, is I wish that the developers would give you presets that says this is the best way to play for 8 players or for 5 players or for however many players, rather than you having to experiment and figure it out. But giving you those tools, giving you those things to rebalance the game a little bit, so much fun. Such a great game. Recent patches adding to this in terms of like a new map, in terms of giving the killer and the henchman a walkie-talkie so you can talk to each other, but it comes with a risk because people can see that walkie-talkies were used recently. This to me is social deduction at its finest, and it's actually paying tribute to the source material in a way that the first moment of that trailer, when I saw it, I was like, what the fuck is this? This looks like shit. And during that trailer, I went, holy shit, this looks amazing. I want to play it. And yes, it's good. It's really good, and I like it. The only downside, again, the player count. You really do need to play with a bigger group of people, and it depends on who you're playing with. I can imagine some groups of people that I just wouldn't want to play this with, because I don't like when people get loud or dominant in these kind of games. And I kind of do that myself as well, and I don't like when I do that. So that's the one thing that kind of kept it down, but it's such a good game. And for like a low price, $10. When this was, I remember we were speculating about the price, and I was like, they're going to charge $30 for this or something like that. No, it's $10. It's $10. All right, my next game. My next game is a video game that captures the incremental nature of a game like Cookie Clicker, where you're starting off going really slow, getting one cookie, and at the end you're getting millions of cookies per second. And that's what this game does as well. and it packages it in a way where you're actually colonizing or terraforming a planet. It's Planet Crafter, starting off really slow, getting a little bit of heat, getting a little bit of oxygen into the planet, and having these tiny goals with like micro values. And then you get the big moments where the ice starts melting and the sky turns blue and the grass starts growing, and you're seeing your progress, and you start putting life out on the planet. This game is a visual representation of what Cookie Clicker does. Like it's basically Cookie Clicker if you could see all the cookies pile up onto a mountain, and I love it. I love the upgrades. Here's this tiny dinky heating system, and at some point you're just pumping out thermonuclear energy into the planet, and it's so good. It does it so well. Yes, it looks shit. The graphics are very, very poor in my opinion, and that's okay because it gives me that incremental clicker that I really appreciate from Cookie Clicker. It has that like numbers go up, numbers go harder, numbers go burr, and they give you customization options in terms of base building and stuff like that. Hell yeah, I love this game. Planet Crafter is amazing, and I'm so glad we got to play this, and I'm so glad we got to play this with people and with friends as well, because as much as I like this solo, it is one of those games where like playing with a group just enhances that experience even more because you can just delegate tasks. Sounds amazing. It was Subnautica mostly for the story. This doesn't even. I love Subnautica. Don't get me wrong. This doesn't even compare with those kind of games because Subnautica is about like the base building and the exploring. This is very much about the incremental nature of this. Like I said, it's almost Cookie Clicker with graphics in that regard. But it's so addictive to go and get bigger numbers and bigger numbers and bigger numbers and bigger numbers and getting those payoffs and those unlocks and going, oh god, I can improve my heating. Oh shit, now I need to change my power around. It's so much fun. I love this game. I want to play the DLC still. Which brings me to my next game, which is also one that I almost didn't want to put on this list because it doesn't even feel in some ways like a game and more like an activity. But the way this plays, it's relaxing. It's just a fun way to hang out with friends, while in the background you're doing this ultimately nonsensical fishing minigame in web fishing, but giving you those customization options to change your character, giving you unlocks to go after, wacky fish to find, where just the fact that at some point I pulled like a giant freaking fish that filled the whole screen out of the ocean, that alone was amazing. But also just the attitude of the developer definitely adds to this one. You got addicted to the Subnautica loop? Yeah, oh, listen, I love Subnautica to bits, so if you think that Planet Crafter can scratch that same itch, I would 100% recommend it. But yes, web fishing is basically a chat room with graphics, but it's so much fun as an experience where playing with your friends and just hanging out and just using this as like, I use this with board games a lot. Social lube, where for me, a lot of the time, the board game doesn't even matter. It's just the thing that facilitates me hanging out with people. And that's what web fishing does as well. It's just the thing that facilitates me hanging out with friends and talking to friends and having something to do in the background. But it's so much fun, and it does it in such a fun and good way that I just can't help but appreciate this game for what it is. And for the price that it cost, $5 again, that played a big factor in this one as well, where it just makes me happy. It just made me happy. It was just a game that made me happy. Even when I was playing solo, it was just a game that made me happy. And the thing that really pushed it over the edge was getting to punch Tantan into the ocean repeatedly. That was definitely a big plus, in my opinion. But no, just so many things about this made me happy. The attitude of the developer, the inclusivity, crime back, the inclusivity of the developer, the fun of the fish, the completionist nature in me that wanted to get the fish and then do the things, and all those various customization options. It just, again, a game that makes me happy is web fishing. Speaking of games that play with friends and make me happy, for anyone who remembers 2023, one of the games that I talked about the most in 2023, we watched weekly updates. I was a champion of this game, and I have proof in my old VODs and in my old videos. I was hyping up this game when there were a lot of doubters, and then this game came out, and there were a lot of likers. In fact, it was one of the most consecutively played games on Steam at the time. It's Power World. I actually set it to ignore this, but it really did it after I rebooted my browser. Um, Power World. It I put 200 hours into this game in a month. It's wild. And yes, it kind of fell off. Every time I was thinking about games from this year, it was less and less in mind because Power World had a lot of frustrations. And a lot of those frustrations came with us playing on a server and a server structure just being shit. Uh, but the experience of going around, capturing Pokemon, getting to build a base, getting to see them work, again, this open world survival crafting nature. I love open world survival crafting games, if that wasn't clear yet. I love this game. The only downside was that server infrastructure, and it just kind of fell lower and lower in my ranking as the year went on because there were so many other open world survival crafting games I played this year. A lot from other years, by the way, but they made me really like look at Powered and go, okay, there were a lot of problems with it. I am very cool. I'm very interested in the new update that's coming out soon, in the new map, and all the improvements they've made over the course of a year. I love Power World a lot. And the thing that's holding it back here was just running into a bunch of technical difficulties. And in the end of Power World, I was in that phase where it's like, I'm done with the game. I just played the game because I wanted to get the Paladex completed, and I was like, I'm done with this game. The little frustration started to add up. The server frustration started to add up. But it's one of those games where I can look back at this and I can go, I had fun. And yes, fun with friends is an important metric. A big, big important metric. The game opens with me washed up on a beach. Yeah, it is. It is a Wii U. But yeah, this was so much fun, and I love this, and I still look at the Power World dev updates, and I still look at the patch notes coming up, and I really want to play this game when the new patch comes out. So next year we'll be playing Power World, and checking out the new map. I already got a bunch of people to agree to play with me, and you can't back out now, Scar, and other people who said yes. But I love this. And also one thing that also helps me love this game is seeing Pocket Pair be the nicest company or one of the nicest companies on the planet, because they're doing things for the community. They're engaging with the community. They're responding to feedback. They're talking to people, and they're helping pay for other things like the Indie Game Awards that we watched yesterday. And their fight against Nintendo, again, I'm a big fan of anyone who's fighting Nintendo. So Power World, that one was for you. My next game, I love detective games. So when a detective game comes out, I'm instantly interested because of Shadows of Doubt. Last year, I got my Seth Crimesman persona. That's what made me go like, I love detective games. I love the genre, and this game lets me play as a duck detective. And not only that, it's a short game with a fun. It's the story the story is pretty simple in terms of what it does, but like the fun they have with it, and the jokes in here, and the winks and the nods and all the things it does just made me very happy, and it really made me feel like I was doing detective work, piecing things together, getting clues. And it has this great narration going over it. And at the end of it, I was like, this felt like a game that respected my time, made me have fun, and now that they announced the sequel, I'm very excited for that as well, because I want to see more of this. It just makes me happy. And again, that's a big factor in putting games on here. Games that make me happy. And this game, oh my god, did it make me happy. Just the little elements of the detective work, and getting to meet all the various personas, and to see the motivations for the crime, and looking at characters and going like, wow, that's obvious, and then going like, oh, actually, never mind, that wasn't obvious. Yeah, good job. And the Swords didn't feel like Swords where they're going like, haha, we fooled you. They actually felt like, oh, cool, they did something else here. They went a different direction. They went against the trope. And it didn't overstay its welcome. That's again big part of me is games that don't overstay the welcome. I'd rather have a game that takes me 4 hours to play and get a good feeling out of, than a game that takes me that takes me 100 hours to play, just to get me to play a game for 100 hours. Right? I don't need that. this is what I need. This is awesome. This is great. And I'm excited for the sequel. And we have an ad break in 4 minutes. Okay, we can do one more entry. We can do one more entry before we go here. Speaking of narratives and games that delivered, I like me a game with a good story. I like me a game with engaging characters, and Vampire Therapist was exactly that. And oh my god, the concept of this being a vampire and dealing with mental health issues, which are relevant to the modern world as well, made by actual therapists using actual therapy, things that I myself recognize from cognitive behavioral therapy because that's what they do. All in like the most wacky product of being a vampire. This game is amazing. I love everything. The characters in here. Again, the fact that you're a cowboy vampire with like the 1800s notions in there in a way. Talking to characters from history and seeing various problems and various, again, things that I myself ran into and things that are recognizable, and learning to be like, that's a fallacy, that's a fallacy. And not only that, but also getting the tools to apply those to yourself in your real life. I mentioned this to my therapist, and she played this game. Nosferatu. Now, there is one reason that this game isn't higher on my list. There's one reason, and I can't say that yet, but we'll get there. But I'm, again, very excited to see the DLC that they're coming out with next year, Couples Therapy. I will be playing that. I loved watching Homie play it. Homie recently played through this game on stream, so if you are interested in watching this game, go watch Naomi play through this, because it is amazing. Again, it's one of those games where like the individual components of it sound weird. You're a cowboy vampire, German goth nightclub. But it just does it all right. It does it so well. And again, the respect here from the designers to actually involve therapists and to use actual therapy and to go with the choice of applying these to vampires so that you can at least like make fun of things in a way that doesn't feel like you're making fun of people going through mental health things, but going like, well, it's a vampire. We can go over the top because they're immortal beings. They've gone through the centuries. We can point out things in a way that doesn't feel like they're actually making fun of anyone in a distasteful way. This game does it all. And itching my nose, sorry. This game does it all. And again, in a way where it respects my time and where it makes me, it almost feels like training to be a therapist in a way, right? Where you're like having to identify the fallacies and identify when they happen and click on the right thing. And at some point going, here's your next patient. This is what I had in the last session. Which of my tools do I want to bring with me? Which fallacies do I want to focus on? And kind of needing to like think about your patient and think which of the therapy techniques you've since learned apply to this patient now that you didn't have available last time, and being able to go back to them and apply different techniques to them and talk to them and find out things about them. And I don't want to spoil things, so I will keep it vague, but even like in this game, there was a character that I didn't like, I didn't vibe with at the beginning, and at the end I was like, that's my favorite character because of the evolution and the things we discovered in the therapy. And in a little bit we'll talk about why this game isn't higher, but I love this game. And in 1 minute we're getting an ad break, so I wish I could do this whole show without ad breaks, but I have to do ad breaks. In 1 minute we'll be getting an ad break, so before we go over to number 18, I will run 3 minutes of ads. We need to do this, keep the pre-rolls off so that people can come into stream without getting ads. This way you might be able to get up, stretch your legs, rest your eyes, get a drink, whatever you need to do, take care of your body, do some self-maintenance. And when we're back from the ad break, we'll move on to my number 18, which is the 18th best game of all time this year ever. Bar none. Maybe not. But it'll be there. Again, those are disabled. Though I will do that in the outbreak. Anyway, we'll be right back. And also, this is just a bonus content anyway. This is not about this. But after the stream, I will make a list of this available on Discord for people who missed this or people who want to read back into this. And I will include links to Steam and all that stuff. So anyone who isn't here for all of this and miss things, I will make the VOD available. You can go watch the VOD, but also I just put out a list for people who want to just get the list and see the games. That will be made available later. Obviously, I didn't want to post that link before. That's just the nature of live content. People are going to miss things. I wish that wasn't the case, but you can go back to the VOD. You can go into the list. That's just. Also, I had a lot of fun adding people to the audience here. It kind of started because Cherry did the voiceover thing for me, and I was like, well, I'm going to put her on the podium. So I literally went into Cherry's stream and just did a quick cutout of her VTuber and put it on the podium there. And I was like, well, now I want people in the crowd. So I literally went into my meme folder where I have people's faces already cut out and literally just slapped some in here and changed the lighting a little bit so that they would blend in a little better than the basic pictures. But I had a lot of fun putting people in places and looking at my meme faces of like Bunny here and Tan. We have No Foreign Gold, Taco. I don't know if Taco is here in any way, but if Taco should see this, the Taco face in the audience is the one that I used for the Wolverine picture on Taco's starting screen. That's the picture. And I wanted to put an actual homie, but it couldn't be anything other than Homie Mendel. I like Epps. Epps' very serious stare there is 100% killing me as well. And Scar with Blanky, which is funny to me as well, because it's like, you know what? I was gonna go into Scar stream, like into one of her VODs or something, and just do a quick cutout as well. I was like, no, I'm gonna put Blanky Scar in here because it's fucking on brand for Scar to be wrapped in a blankie. So it just panned out into me having a lot of fun dumping people's faces from memes that I made in here. Yeah, there you go, Scar. And like I said, it was like a last minute idea that I had, but I'm so glad I did it because it felt appropriate. Wow, Chihuahua. Okay. Electrical quartz, huh? Before we go back into this, I need to go here for just. Well, you know what? You can see what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. Peak formal attire, 100%. Welcome back from the ads, everyone. Hello. You didn't miss much other than me talking about making or the process of making the audience. So welcome back from the ads. Let's continue with this list of games. My number 18. My number 18 could have been a lot higher on this list if it wasn't for the fact that last year I played the demo for about 40 hours and I burned myself out on the game by just playing it a lot. And then when the game actually came out, I already felt like I've had a lot of the game, and I did play a bunch more since then. But it's one of those games where it's like, you already had a lot of time in my brain, and you already occupied a lot of power and time in my brain. Backpack battles, I love you. I love auto battlers. I love the inventory managing system here. And the only reason you're not higher than what you could be is because I burned myself out on this game because of how good the demo was, and the demo was free, and they were updating the demo. Ultimate power move, formal blanket shot. There, exactly. Backpack battles is the ultimate hyperfixation game for my ADHD brain. Optimizing your inventory, making interesting builds with the different characters that there are, and having unlocks you can earn by playing the game, and the game actually rewarding you for playing it. Holy fucking shit. It's such a good game, and it already spawned a bunch of spin-offs, and it itself is kind of a, clone of super autopats and inventory management games. but it's so good. It's such a good game that, yeah, when the release came out, this is kind of what I was talking about with early access games. When the demo turned into the full game at some point, I was like, well, it still feels like the demo with some extra characters because the demo was so good and so well done. Just for that alone, by the way, they deserve so much praise. Um, but yeah, I love Backpack Battles. It's super good. And it's one of those games where, like, I love PvP games, or I don't like PvP games, sorry, but I like it here because you're actually playing against like ghosts of players. Excuse me. You're actually playing against like the ghosts of players in a way where you're just doing your own thing. And it just feels so good. And like optimizing your backpack. And sometimes you get those moments where you get one new item and you go, holy shit, I need to redo my whole inventory. And you're sitting there for 10 minutes trying to figure out the best way to do your inventory. Um, and wanting to get that little bit of extra power, that little bit of extra, it's, oh my God, it's so good. It's such a hyper focus. And even just talking about this, I want to go and play this game again because it's so good. That's the power of like the hyper focus pool that this game does, and it rewards you for doing that. And the item combinations. By the way, I complained about this with a lot of Vampire Survivor likes, where like you don't get the item combinations. This game lets you combine items. Holy shit. My number 17 is I love Resident Evil. And I'm a little bit of like I like history in a lot of ways, and I don't like that these things happen, okay? But I do like the grittiness and realism of history, because a lot of times history gets glorified and we talk about the cool things and the good things and the fun things in history, and we don't talk about how fucked up history could be, and the terrors of things. And Conscript, my God, Conscript shows you history, and it doesn't glorify it, and it doesn't pull any punches. You're a French soldier in World War One in trench warfare, and you're getting a slice of fucking history. You're seeing the terrors of war. You're seeing people get shell shocked. You're seeing people get torn into shit by bombardments and by bullet fire, and it's horrific and it's horrendous. But it's what happened. It's what happened. It's an accurate depiction of history. It doesn't glorify it. It doesn't portray your side to be the objective heroes like a lot of fucking American films do, where the Americans are the hero by de facto, and the Americans never did anything wrong, to the point where in freaking Band of Brothers, people got angry that the soldiers were killing people because that wasn't heroic. Of course it isn't, but it happened. And people don't talk about these things about history, and Conscript does. Unashamedly so. And all of this is packed in a Resident Evil-like gameplay experience that feels like I'm playing Resident Evil 1 with an isometric point of view. I had my frustrations with this game. There are things about this game that just absolutely annoyed me, right? That there were a couple of bugs and gameplay or game design decisions that just didn't do it well. But I had a lot of fun with this game. It gave me an experience, and it gave me realism. It was like a full week of it, right? Yeah, and this was also one where I didn't expect it to be on my list, but every time I was like talking about or thinking about this game, I was like, yeah, uses real history, right? Without going into Wolfenstein Nazi zombie terror. Yeah, like, right. It shows you the realism. It shows you that both sides did bad things. It shows you the atrocities of war. It shows you the freaking terrors and the pains, and even giving your character a place to hide rather than engage in this phase of trench warfare. You can actually literally be a coward, and getting different endings for that, and payoffs. It's good. It's at the same time a love letter to the original Resident Evil. It's a love letter to the survival horror franchise as a whole, and it's a callback to a horrific time in our history. And it could have so easily gone the heroic route. It could have so easily done that. But it shows you that you're a flawed character. your side is flawed, the side you're fighting is flawed. Again, it's not pulling punches. It's not going, you're the good guys, those are the bad guys. It shows you the grittiness of history. And for that, I appreciate this game. And for the fun I've had with this, I appreciate this game. And for the flaws it has, it's a little lower than where it could have ultimately been. But yeah. Speaking of flaws and games being lower than where there could have been, Scar. I think you already know what game this is now. Hi. I'm just going to say it. Core Keeper is my number 16. Core Keeper is a phenomenal game. It gives me the Terraria feeling. It gives me that exploring the world, gathering resources, crafting armor, going further, crafting better armor. It gives me that satisfying gameplay loop that a lot of survival games and open world games do. In a very fun experience. With the combat was fun in this, the base building was really good in this. You could clearly see that this game was inspired by Terraria, and they weren't ashamed of it because there's a Terraria crossover boss in this. So they weren't ashamed of admitting this either. And it does it so well. It's such a dope game with such a cool, rewarding gameplay loop and the upgrade system. And there's again, this is a game which is flawed. There's a lot of flaws in this game. And some of them to fix, by the way, because, for example, the new crafting tables you made, you basically have to destroy your old one, and now you can at least recover your resources. So they're still working on this. This game came out of early access this year. I didn't play it before early access. I only played that on release, so I can't do a comparison of the two. But it was such a fun experience, and the thing that ultimately pushed it lower, this is why I mentioned Scar. I played this game with Scar. We for like a week and a half hyper focused on this game, and then we got to the end game, and the bosses became a little shit. Flopster, hello. The bosses became a little shit, and that's ultimately what got me off on that, like not off on that way, but ultimately what got this game lower than where it could have been. The boss design felt really, really bad in the end, where it was like here's a boss with a massive pool of health, a massive shield, and multiple phases. And like the final boss, we didn't beat it, but we got so close that I can tell you, the final boss just felt like it lasted like 7 cycles too long. It was just way too long and way too punishing. And that's just the case for the final few bosses in this game, that were just too health spongy, too much. But the game itself is so good, and with a little bit of redesigning and a little bit of rebalancing, this game could be even higher than that. But you could literally tell the moment both Scar and I fell off the game. Like if it wasn't for the fact that we didn't live stream this, but you could literally tell the moment we fell off this game, because we did the last boss and both of us were like, okay, let's never play this game. Like we were literally like, oh, let's play some Core Keeper. Let's play some Core Keeper. And then we did that final boss, and we never talked about Core Keeper again. The hyper focus was gone. But it is ultimately an experience that I loved, and I love playing this game with Bunny Slaughter as well, and with other friends in there. It is a really fun game. There's a lot to it. It just ended with a fizzle rather than with the bang it could have been. And again, this is a game that could have been higher on my list if it wasn't for the ending being a little flawed. But yes. And yeah, that can be frustrating at the end of a great game, having that little... I'd rather have the mid game of this being a little worse than the end game, because at least then it can end on a high note. But it didn't end on a high note. It kind of just ended with it, like, okay, well, we're done. And that's the one sad thing about this. But everything else, so much fun. And some of the upgrades you could just see were fun. Like instead of having a pickaxe, you had a drill, or you had a hammer that let you mine so much, giving you mine carts to fuck around with, automation in a way as well. There's a lot of good things here. So ultimately, that's it. Number 15. And I've talked about this effect a couple of times now, and number 15 is the biggest victim of this effect. A lot of the times when I look at games and where they rank, I keep in mind the Tears of the Kingdom. It's the Tears of the Kingdom effect. Tears of the Kingdom is a good game, but I already played Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom felt like Breath of the Wild. And this game It's exactly that. It's Hades 2. I love Hades. This is a great game too. But it felt like I was just playing Hades again. And it just felt like Hades, and there were improvements. Don't get me wrong. The characters were great. The writing was great. But it ultimately felt like I was just playing Hades again. And that kind of pulled it down for me in a lot of ways. Like, I was super excited when this game came out. I played this game. I love this game. And that's kind of where my hype ended for this, because it's like, well, I'm just playing Hades again. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I can tell you this. This is a 9.5 out of 10 for me. A 9.5 out of 10. But every time I look at this game and I'm ranking my games, I'm like, well, I could just play Hades 1 instead of this. And I can objectively say that I think that this game is better than Hades 1 as well. But I already got Hades 1. And again, that's the same thing with Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. I already have Breath of the Wild, which I didn't even think was a good game in that case, by the way. Yes, that's why the 2 is there. More sequels? Yeah, it's the game is dope. Hades is dope. I just got that oversaturation because I already played Hades 1. Yeah, more like an update DLC than a full game. Yeah, that's what it felt like in a lot of ways to me. In a lot of ways, it just felt like I was playing Hades. It felt like they were playing it safe and kind of phoning it in while making improvements, while making a good game, while giving me characters that I love and enjoy. And I'm looking forward to the full release of this because I want to play this again and I want to start over. But in my brain, I've already played this game. I've already had my joy with this game. And making choices, well, here we go. And don't let this sound like I didn't like the game. Again, it's my number 15 of the year, okay? It is good. It is an amazing game. But all of that got toned down a little bit because I already played Hades 1. And if someone asks me, should I get Hades 2? My answer is going to be no, get Hades 1, because Hades 1 is going to be cheaper, it's already fully developed, and it's the same game. And a few years from now, that answer could change. That answer could be no, get Hades 2, because it's the better game. But for now, this will jumpstart the devs to be like, people, yeah, do sequels. Do sequels. I would love that. But the early access route here felt like a kind of cop-out in a way. I would have rather they just sat on the game for a year longer and just gave me the full game. But still, it's a really good game. It's a really, really good game. Don't let me underplay that. Number 14. I'm Dutch. What a secret. What a surprise. But one of the things that a lot of people know is that I don't like a lot of Dutch things because it's weird and it's cringy. But this made me proud to be Dutch. It's Grun. What a concept of a game. What an amazing, interesting game. And I'm trying to not spoil this for you, but they're starting out with like, go garden, go take care of this garden. And getting this time loopy game where you reset the game and you can find out like different paths and different things and different endings. And oh my God, it's fucking good. And I still didn't get that speedrun achievement. I tried my best. But getting the true ending of this game and getting the reveals and the secrets and the knowledge that you get from playing the game and going like, okay, I know I can do this and this and this and this and this, and you're getting better at it and you're getting rewarded in terms of like not just an in-game thing, but also the knowledge. Oh my God, this was such a fucking fun experience and such a... If you ever want to get a little bit of Dutch culture and you want to get that, there's so much Dutch culture in this game. But it's also just a really fucking good game. And it gave me that... It gave me that... It gave me that Outer Wilds experience, right? Where you have that time loop going on. And I love the Outer Wilds as well, by the way. Really, really love the game. But this gave me the Outer Wilds experience in a really like bite-sized, short experience that's like a few hours, even with all the time loops and all of that stuff. And it gave me all the good feels without... At the end, Outer Wilds kind of it drew itself out for me because I just kept playing it because I wanted to get everything. And Outer Wilds for me also had one of those things which I played it so much that you could just, and Grunt just had that perfect loop of like, okay, cool, we're done. I wanted more. And when I want more from a game, after the game is over, then I'm like, okay, cool, that's great. And Grunt did that for me. It's so good. It's so fun to discover things and find secrets and find new ways to go about things and find new things you can do. Total normal garden sim. Total normal garden sim. Number 13. I don't even need to introduce it because I put on the t-shirt, not even on purpose today. I just had it on and I was like, hey, that's a cool coincidence. But number 13, gory cuddly carnage. There's so much to like about this because it is a good number for it, right? It's almost a love letter to the hack and slash genre, like the OG God of War. There's a lot of gore and a lot of cool combos in this. The style, like the actual visual style of this game is great. Being able to get skins, always. And again, a story that's very, very interesting and made me want to find out what was happening, even though the story doesn't really play like that big of a role in the game, but just wanting to find out what was happening and what was going on, playing, and another game that just absolutely did not overstay its welcome. This is such a fun game. It is such a fun game. And yes, me getting the t-shirt. But the whole experience here was just top fucking tier. It felt to me like I was playing, like I said, the OG hack and slash games like God of War, Devil May Cry with the combo system, getting those different upgrades, and just the feel of tearing through a whole pack of enemies while looking cool and stylish while doing it. Yeah, again, it's gory. Yes, it's in the name. Haha. Yeah, it's gory, but it's also style and delivery, and it makes you feel good because you're slicing through a whole pack of enemies with your fucking skateboard. And the movement around the game, which feels a little Tony Hawk meets Mirror's edgy. I love this game. It's so much fun. It's again, it makes my brain happy. Speaking of happy brain, and sorry that I'm keeping this one shorter, but there's just a lot to go through here anyway. Speaking of games that makes my brain happy, very DMC, it's very DMC inspired, very DMC, very so much inspiration, so much open on their sleeve inspiration. I love it. Speaking of games that make me happy, this next game, I saw another streamer play it, and I hadn't heard of this game before. And I looked at it, and I was like, this looks amazing. And I requested a key for this game, got it, and I played it, and I love this game. To the point where I interrupted myself and I messaged Bonnie Slaughter. I was like, this is a game you should play as well because I know you're going to like it too. I couldn't contain my hype. It's Goblin Auto Club Manager. And the streamer I saw play this was Ellie Space Mantis. It takes the auto battler genre and makes it so that you're managing a racer and you get to customize the vehicles and you get to customize the drivers and you get to pick what races you want to do. And it ends with this like Grand Prix where you have to like use your knowledge of the courses to adjust the car and try and win. There's so much actual rewarding dopamine here that I fell in love with this game pretty much instantly. Again, just being able to tinker with the car, it's like, okay, this is an icy course, so we want to get the grip and want to get this, and this is a course with a lot of bends, so we want to get better at steering, and this is a course with a lot of straights, so we want to have like a good acceleration and a good top speed. Being able to adjust the car, save presets, and then again, apply all of that in like a Grand Prix at the end where you're going through all the courses you just did, and being able to apply those improvements you made to your car, it felt so fucking good. And again, as an auto battler, because you don't do any racing, yeah, you can influence your car a little bit with boosts and stuff like that, but that's about it. And then there's the visual style of this, which feels like you're playing like an NESy game, and it's just so fucking good. This is another one of those games where every time I was working on my original top 10, and when it was falling off, I was like, I want to keep it in there. I want to keep it in there. I want to keep it in there. And I felt bad. And I was pushing and going, oh, like, it's this game is one of the reasons that you're getting a top 25, because I want to put more games on display and I wanted to put more games in here. And I felt really bad. Sorry, I just sent a message in between all of that. This just felt like all the things I love coming together, and that's it. Number 11, another one that I felt really bad pushing off, and this, relating back to Backpack Battles, is a game I played the demo of as well, and where I purposely went, I'm going to uninstall this demo because I love this game, and I don't want to play more of this because I'm going to get burned out on this, and it's going to be the exact same thing as Backpack Battles, and I didn't want that to happen, and that's Dungeon Crawler, because Dungeon Crawler is fucking amazing. We're getting so many different roguelike deck builders that they're starting to all blend in, and the ones that do something truly unique stand out even more. And that's what Dungeon Crawler is, because Dungeon Crawler ultimately is a roguelike deck builder. You're going to a dungeon, you're going to rooms, you're choosing your paths, but instead of building a deck, you're building a claw machine. Right, so much unique shit. You're building a claw machine, and you're using your grappler to grab what you want. So not only are we not building a deck, but we're also not drawing cards in the traditional way. We get to decide roughly what we want to pick. And there's, you got hooked in, literally, in this case. You get to go for things, and sometimes you have to make a greedy play where, like, I'm going to try to get both of these items that are next to each other. And sometimes it blows up in your face, and sometimes you do it, and sometimes you do a cool thing, and you get these cool combos where you're put 20 hours into the demo. Yeah, and I had to stop playing the demo because I didn't want to get burned out. And all the different characters, all the different ways you can manipulate the claw machine, going from different gripping styles. Instead of a claw, you have a magnet or tentacles. Changing the material types of things. So now they're metallic, so you can get them with a magnet, or now they're wooden, so they float if you fill your container with water. Having item combos and stuff like that in there that you can actually manipulate a little bit by changing these types of your equipment. It felt so good. It's such a rewarding, addicting game, and ultimately something that takes that roguelike deck builder genre in a direction where we're getting new shit, right? Again, letting go of the deck element, letting go of the traditional things that define the genre, but still being very much a part of that genre. It stands out. It stands out in such a cool and unique way. And again, it felt really bad that this wasn't in my top 10, but we'll get to why this is in my top 10 in a moment. There's one reason, and one reason only, that this is in my top 10. And we'll get to that in 2 games. But yes, I love this game. This is the prime example of when I started making this list. I grabbed this game and I went, this is going to be somewhere in there. And for all the good reasons, because it's, again, I love it. Number 10, speaking of Resident Evil, we also just watched a trailer of it, funny enough. Sorry, we're closed. When I initially saw trailers for this game, I thought they were going to go a way more traditional Resident Evil clone route with this, and I was interested in this. And then when I finally got to play this game, it turned out to be like a story-driven game with elements of a dating game in a way. And it's just that combination of style and substance and presentation, and the whole package here grabbed me. Yes, I struggled a little bit with the controls because I played on a controller, and then the shooting elements made me go like I should be playing with a mouse. That's the one thing because I can't aim for shit with a controller. But getting that story and getting to meet the characters and then being asked like, hey, pick a side, pick a character. And there was so many characters I wanted to go for. Uh, and ultimately just seeing the evolution of your own character, right? Starting off as a character that's very much entrenched in the past and letting herself kind of waste away because she's holding on to that ideal of the past, her ex-girlfriend, and basically being thrust into having to let that go and having to change and having to find yourself because now your life depends on it. And meeting this cast of characters, all of which with their own flaws, all of which with things that made me go, I like this character or I very fucking hate this character. And being forced to like make these difficult choices. I like this character, but in order to do this, I need to do something that isn't going to make them happy, or I'm going to have to interact with a character that I don't want to interact with. And then there's just so much story here, and I want to replay it. I want to see the different endings as well. But yes, this is a great tribute to Resident Evil, but it's so much more than that, that any way they marketed this game would have been just not selling it all that well to themselves. But my God, meeting this like these demonic characters and hearing their stories and ultimately having the Duchess be revealed, clinging onto this ideal of love that she had, this notion of love, and then finding out that you're basically competing against God as her former lover and going, holy shit, there's no way. In a way, this game, with the story it presents, also just makes people look at relationships they've been in, right? Where you're holding on to past ideals and comparing all your future partners with that ideal look back that you had, and then making it in such a way that it's angels and demons and going, yeah, my ex is God, and going, well, there's no competing there, because who doesn't recognize that story, at least from either your own experiences or from other people's, where they're just holding on to that ideal partner that is just, you're glorifying this in your head over time, and it's sabotaging your present, and being able to like come to terms with that and cope with that. In a way, the Duchess is such like an extreme version of the character you're playing, right? Both are holding on to these past loves and romances and letting that ruin their present and sabotage themselves. And then the ending we got, holy fucking shit. The ending we got made me so happy. You checked out Grun? It is a really good game, Misty. Really love this kind of story beats. Yeah, again, good storytelling is, it's difficult. But having these stories where you can literally see like they're juxtaposing two things, or they're comparing two things, and making you deal with this and in a way to an extreme. Yeah, all just excellent forms of storytelling and gameplay, and this culmination of here's a Resident Evil like game with so much style and story to it, and so many lovable characters, and characters that I absolutely adore, and a character that I very fucking hate. Can't say enough about this game, and this game made me very, very happy. And rare is the game that we beat fully on stream, but this one, I had to just get through this game and see it. And speaking about rare is the game that we beat on stream, and speaking about the game that made Dungeon Crawler number 11 instead of a part of my top 10, number 9 could potentially even be higher, but I did kind of have to hold myself back a little bit from putting this higher, just because it's one of the latest games we played. But my God, is this the actual factual best indie game of the year? Thanks, IGN, for sniping my joke. But it is Indiana Jones in the Great Circle. Now, jokes aside, this is my favorite AAA game of the year, and my only AAA game that made it into. That's correct. Right? Yes, my only AAA game that made it into the top 25. If you ever needed to prove that I like indie games, besides the Indiana Jones joke here, there's only one AAA game in my top 25, and it's this one. And yes, respect. And I held it back on purpose because I felt like this could be higher, but I also just came off of it and I got off that hype, so I kind of had to hold myself back a little bit, right? But this is a AAA game done well. It's a love letter to Indiana Jones. It pays tribute to the source material. It recognizes the source material. Sometimes a little too much inside of that, where it's like, okay, it's okay to go your own direction a little bit rather than taking everything from what came before. And delivering it in this great 3-act structure with 3 open world sections that had a lot of discovery in there, but also felt like they respected your time. Star Wars Outlaws, which we were playing recently, is the exact opposite, where it's like, here's an open world map, go fucking do something, and there's so much shit on a map, and none of it is relevant to what you're doing other than you're getting more power or a tiny upgrade or a tiny bonus. But Indiana Jones, you get rewarded. Not only do you get upgrades and experience that you can use to purchase these upgrades, but every quest you do rewards you with more knowledge of the main plot. If you were to play through this game without doing any of the side quests, you're getting an Indiana Jones movie. That's what you're getting. But if you're doing all the side quests and all the bonus content in this game, you're getting the Indiana Jones movie with the wiki entries attached to everything, because you're learning stuff about the lore and about what's happening, about the plot, about the people involved in this plot. It's rewarding you with just like more knowledge. And so many times did I do a sub quest and I went, oh, they mentioned the Great Circle, or oh, they're mentioning this, or oh, they're doing that. And it felt like I wanted to do these quests because it gave me knowledge and it gave me more exploring. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And this game just super duper 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 feels like you're playing an Indiana Jones movie because you're whipping, you're punching. My one complaint here is that the shooting is great. It's made by the Wolfenstein devs, and the shooting feels great, but you don't get to do it a lot because every time you shoot, the whole map is just alerted to your presence, and that's kind of a shame. That's my one gripe here, and the bugged achievement that I still can get. But yeah, this is Indiana Jones. This is a love letter to the series. It's, as much as I fucking hate Troy Baker, it's such a good performance by Troy Baker, and yeah, no, I just had to be somewhere in here, and the more I thought about it, the higher it went, and the higher it went, and it probably could be even higher than where it is now, but I held it back because I was like, it's the newest entry here. I need to sit on this a little bit more, and ultimately I felt like number 9 was a pretty good spot for this. So yeah, and there were a couple of frustrating bits. I won't pretend there weren't, and most of those were caused by me going, I'm not going to 100% this game. I 100%ed this game. And some of the frustrations were like, if you don't find items exploring while you're doing the missions and you have to go back, it can get a little frustrating to find your way around some of the places. But other than that, holy shit, this game is great. And the 3 different maps each feel unique in their own way. Exploring like the open desert of Egypt feels just like an open world plain game. And in a way, Egypt is the weakest map in terms of like, it's just an open world desert, and there's not a lot of obstructions in your way. But you get to see the pyramids, you get to see the Sphinx, you get to go into this town and you know, see the high notes of Egypt. It's such a good map in that regard. And then there's Sukhothai, which is in a way the worst map in the game because it's this water level where you have to travel by boat. And if you want to go from A to B, you can't just take the direct path. You have to get in this boat and you have to travel around, and it gets a little frustrating. But you also get to see these cool ruins and these cool handcrafted individual sections of a map. And it's great. And then you get to the Vatican, which is the first map. You get to the Vatican, and the Vatican is, in a way, the worst map in the game. And yes, I'm repeating the joke because they're all frustrating in their own ways, but also really cool in their own ways. Because the Vatican feels like you're playing a Dark Souls level where you're opening up shortcuts and you're getting to all these areas and you're climbing up a roof and going there to open a door that you can now use so that you don't have to do that anymore. It's such a tight level with a lot of verticality in it. It can get a little frustrating because of that, because of having to navigate your way around it. But it also feels like such a well-designed level, and all of these 3 open world maps are so different in their own rights that, yeah, um, I love every bit about this game except for some of the frustrating sections. And also, this is the one time where we can go. The ranking of this game is also the rating I gave this game. Number 8. Number 8. I like Resident Evil. That's the 3rd time we get to do this on this list. I like Resident Evil. And where Conscript and Sorry We're Closed felt like homages and tributes to the Resident Evil games, this felt like the ultimate culmination and payoff of Resident Evil games. This is Crow Country. This is purposely made to look like PlayStation 1 graphics. And it is the out of the 3 games that are like Resident Evil that I mentioned so far, this is the one that is like, they just took Resident Evil 1 and copy pasted in a lot of ways, and in a good way. Getting to explore this theme park and trying to figure out what happened here, while trying to navigate your way around and open these areas up and solve these puzzles and find these items. There's so much here that this could have just been a PlayStation 1 game. This could have just been a game that existed in that era. And it's another one of these. It respects your time by giving you a shorter game. Yeah, the puzzles in this were so good, and the areas in this were so good, and the atmosphere and the fun. This is actually a game that's not afraid to be like, here's a couple of jokes that are just like, yeah, it's a trash can, dummy. And also, accessibility-wise, this is the first time I'm mentioning accessibility on this list. There is a system where you have these, like, you can ask the game, what should I do next? So if you ever get stuck in a video game, and I think that this is the perfect game to implement something like this in. If you ever get stuck in a video game, you're like, what should I do next? You can actually just ask the game for help. And I think that's such a good and well-implemented system. It felt like calling Nintendo hotline back in the day. I don't know what to do, help me. And the game will go, well, maybe I should go there. And it doesn't outright tell you what to do, it just nudges you in the right direction. This game is fantastic. I played it twice because it came out on Nintendo Switch after, and I played through it all the way there as well. It's so much fun. It's so good. And for all the little design flaws that I could find in it and point out in it, for all the little things I could talk about where it didn't feel as good as the original Resident Evil or all that stuff, ultimately, this was one of those that put me back in time playing Resident Evil on PlayStation and having fun. And gradual hints of lost art. Yeah, and this game is just like, here's a nudge in the right direction, and here's the thing, and here's, And some of the puzzles were just clever as well. I feel like some of the puzzles were really, really clever and not too difficult, but at least they made you think. And that's something I didn't mention in Indiana Jones either. In Indiana Jones, there's a couple of puzzles as well where it's just like, oh yeah, I just figured this out with logic. And it's the same thing here. Speaking of games that call back to a lost or different era, I almost said the name of the game, so fuck it. Victory Heat Rally is my number 7. This felt like one of those old arcade cabinet racing games, like Daytona, with modern design considerations in here, right? As much as it calls back to older games, you can see the mushroom puzzle. Yes, I love that one. You could see clearly what this game is inspired by, but they weren't afraid to modernize it in a lot of ways. And this game just felt so fun. I normally don't like racing games too much, but the arcade racing nature of this, the Grand Prix you're going through, the challenge races in this, which could be a little tricky, but ultimately made me go, I want to do this. I want to get a gold medal. I want to perfect this. Being able to unlock characters with skins again, you can earn for their cars. Holy shit! Again, in-game earnable skins. And the final cornerstone of this is the fucking soundtrack. Is, oh my god, it is so good. It feels like this was made to be played on an arcade cabinet. And as much as I've said this before, this is a game that made me happy. When you're playing a game and all of a sudden you go, why does my face hurt? Oh, I've been smiling. That's what this game did. And this is an era of indie games that we're seeing a lot of this year, and we're going to see a lot of it in the years to come for sure. But indie games that are made to play on your nostalgia, and you can just see that these people were fans of arcade racing games. Just like you could see that the Crow Country devs were fans of Resident Evil. This feels like a passion in a way, and it's such a good game that it's yeah, again, made me happy. Number 6 is a game that I had been hyped for about 2 years before it ever came out. I saw the initial trailers, I saw the announcement, and I was very excited for a dungeon crawler game that had a comic book aesthetic, but you're also on a winter holiday killing monsters, and that's Dungeons of Hinterberg. Um, and the game did not disappoint. This is it's an open world dungeon crawler puzzle game where you're playing as a character who is on a vacation in like this alpine village that has been invaded by monsters, and they've turned it into a tourist attraction. And you're going on your slaycation, going through dungeons, killing monsters, and there's this whole meta plot involved. You can meet characters, befriend characters, talk to characters. Again, it has this like dating game almost aspect to that in that regard, but befriending the characters and getting benefits for it as well. By the way, that's something not a lot of games do, where you're actually getting rewarded for befriending these characters and interacting with them, and all the while having your character come to terms with like being in a job she doesn't quite enjoy, and now being in this new environment that made her realize, like, hey, I don't like this dead end job I'm in. It's this again, this almost coming of age, self realization story, done so perfectly, done so brilliantly, and the gameplay is just phenomenal. I dropped something, and I don't. There it is. The gameplay is just phenomenal, and the different dungeons all feel unique in their own way. The different puzzles, the different powers that you get interacting with that. Every dungeon in this feels like it feels like an evolution of the last dungeon, right? You get a power, you get a dungeon that links into that power and heavily makes you use it, and then you get a dungeon that makes you use that power in a new way, or it combines two different powers in ways you have to now use them and think about this, and it ultimately just like slowly holds your hand and helps you get through the game without making you realize that the game is helping you and holding your hand and setting you up for things. It's such a good way to introduce you to the concepts and to the powers and to the system. And it feels so good. It feels like a happy, fun game as well, as lot as there's a combat game. And yeah, the art style, again, the comic book nature of this is happy game. Um, Speaking of happy game, this next game is the reason why Vampire Therapist suffered a little bit in my rating, because it is a very similar game when compared to Vampire Therapist. And as I talked about before, that's something that I take with me a lot, where it's like games that are similar and kind of, gave me the same feel. Yeah, you're kind of competing with each other, and ultimately, I now need to pick, and that's Tavern Talk. And Tavern Talk is this. It's an exploration of characters and feelings and emotions, and it's very much like Coffee Talk, if you haven't played that before, where you're just playing as this innkeeper in a D&D like world, and you're getting these different characters who come into your inn and they talk to you, and you slowly get to learn about the characters and their problems and their what haunts them and what's wrong with them. and you get to guide them by making them drinks and listening to them and giving them quests and puzzling together these quests. It's coffee talk on steroids in a way. And I also just get really happy when games are inclusive, like having characters that are non-binary in there and having characters that are dealing with things. And sometimes you get a character that you figured them out, you have a beat on them, and then they tell you something and you go, holy shit, now I'm thinking of you in a whole different way. Now I understand what you're going through. And it's, again, an exploration of different characters and emotions. And honestly, in a super duper simple gameplay loop, because what are you doing? You're making drinks and you're reading? Oh no. But the writing is so well done, the characters are so well made, and I would just want to learn more about them and help them and be there for them and cherish them and make sure they're safe. And the feeling you get when a character goes out and you're like, I hope they're okay. I hope they're okay. And thinking about them and taking that with you, and then being happy when you see them again and you get to learn a little bit more about them and a little bit more about what's happening. This game made me happy. This game made me very, very fucking happy. And it's also one of those where they made a D&D tie-in to their game that I'm like, I want to play this at some point with people just to explore the world a little bit more. And yeah. Also, I'm gonna highlight accessibility again here. Having a log in your game where I can go and read conversations again, because I have ADHD and sometimes I just accidentally click. People do this as well. Sometimes I accidentally click through a conversation and I miss what's said, and being able to go back in your log and being able to read what people said. Fuck yes. There's so many good things here. There's so many fucking good things here that ultimately come down to this is just an experience in a way rather than the game. But it is an experience that I'll take with me. And there's some characters in here that I fucking cherish forever. So number 4 is the exception to a rule I established early on in today's stream. It is a game that came out of early access that I played before it went out of early access, several times in fact. And every time they made changes to this game and every time they improved on this game, it felt better and better and better and better. And it made me happy to be able to play this with friends as well. That is also a big takeaway. And it also made me happy. And this is part of experience with the game, right? This is also a very big factor in this one. The experience of beating the final boss in this game on stream with people being here and cheering and just a shared moment in time. It's V-Rising. This game is pretty much my favorite open world survival crafting game out there right now. I like everything about this, from the Diablo-esque gameplay, the castle building, actually having a fucking castle as a vampire and being able to decorate it and being able to fill it with not just these crafting stations, but also being able to fill it with decorations that add to the gothic castle feel. Needing to make rooms for your crafting stations so that you don't end up with one big factory room where all your crafting stations are but having a reason to make different rooms and optimize things and getting rewarded for wanting to do that as well. Because a lot of games don't reward you for this. This game makes you do it and it rewards you for it. This progression, which a lot of open world games don't have. A lot of open world games just go, hey, here you are, go, do the thing. And I go, what do I do next? And the game goes, I don't know, you figure it out. This game helps you. It guides you along by giving you new bosses to fight and telling you this is where you want to go. This is something you unlock by killing this boss. Sean, hello. This is a boss that you just beat, and this is what you got. And you go, okay, cool. Now I can make something new. Oh, and this something new makes me able to do this and this and this. And now I can get better gear. And it has this satisfying gameplay loop and a satisfying progression cycle. And the different powers you unlock and can give to your vampire. And the clothes, there's a lot of that, making your vampire look hot and sexy and cool. a big part of this game, and I love that. And the improvements they made on this game from early access into the, what's it called, Gloomwood patch, into the version 1.0 patch, every time they didn't just add content to the game, they actually went back and rebalanced things and made the early experience different and better, changed the way where some of the bosses and some of the powers were and how they interact with each other. When I played the 1.0 release of this, I was kind of afraid I was like going to be like, well, it just feels like V Rising again until you get to the new area. But no, they actually made it feel different and better, and I could clearly tell the difference between early access and 1.0 and where they made the changes and what they changed and how much better it felt and how much happier it made me feel. And yes, again, being here with friends, having people like Taco and Cherry there along for the ride, and then playing with friends and having people there to do the task with. Yeah, this is in a lot of ways the perfect open world survival crafting game for me. And you get to live out your vampire experiences and dreams. You get to actually be a vampire, drink people, get powers. I fully recommend people check this out. And also the Castlevania integration here was also dope. That reveal that yes, there's a DLC for it, but also just that there's a Belmont in the game, and I loved it. The one downside, the one complaint, the one big complaint is the final boss. I don't know if they've changed it since then. I think they have, but the final boss was a piece of shit. And I don't mind having a difficult boss at the end, but the final boss actually punished you for playing with friends. And I think Cherry and I were a victim of like the most unfortunate party size for this boss was 2 players, because I just felt like they added mechanics where they didn't want people to rush through this boss with a party of 4, and I get that, but the mechanic they added, that little like debuff, that it made the fight feel so much more difficult with a party, and then having to go back in and do it solo. I was really happy when I beat Dracula. I still am very proud of that achievement. But I also felt really bad that I couldn't do that with my friends. And that's the one sour note that the game left me on a little bit. But other than that, what a game. Like, actually, one of my favorite games ever in that regard. And one that I'll gladly revisit. And funny enough, I didn't plan this. I swear to fuck, people can just read my mind. But funny enough, today I got a newsletter from the devs of this game with a dev update, and they're talking about the next patch and the improvements they're going to make. And I'm excited for this game again. This game got just put on my radar again. By the way, this list was finalized a week ago. But reading that dev update and reading what they're doing, even though the game is now out of early access, yes. And by the way, one more thing, the ad break is about to start, so I will be wrapping this up in a second. But one more thing, the updates to the early access of this, I've talked about this with Taco, where both of us went, I would have happily paid for what they added as DLC, because I was happy with the original release of the game. But unfortunately, we are about to get an ad break. I need to run these every hour so that we don't have pre-rolls. When we get back from the ads, we will continue with the top 3 games of the year, the actual factual best 3 games of the year. Use the 3 minutes as a chance to rest your eyes, stretch your legs, whatever you need to do to take care of your body. And then we'll be going into the top 3. Respect for finalizing this last week. I'd have been doing it last minute. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at a relevant moment. But at some point, I need to tell myself this is the cutoff date for doing things and for getting this out of my brain. Otherwise, I will be tinkering with this all day. And I don't want to do that to my brain and to the games. So we'll talk about that a little bit in the post show if you want, but also there's a moment coming up for that. And with the ad break about to start in 30 seconds, I'm going to open this on this screen right here. I will stay on this scene because I don't want to go out of this specific scene because of how I've set things up, but I can at least read this to you. This is the dev update that they mailed me for V Rising. And just seeing that they're still pouring into this and still gathering feedback. And something here about making your vision whole. You can't read this, but what the devs say here is, alongside these visuals, we added classes of armor at different tiers, enabling you to tailor your combat stats to fit specific playstyles, whether you prefer the agility of a rogue or the spellcasting prowess of a caster. In this way, your character's look and gameplay reinforce one another, making your vision whole. I love that. That little line there by the devs, which they highlighted, they put that in bold letters. That little highlight there, the devs understand. It's not about them. It's about us as the players. And here they're saying we're pretty happy with the options we've delivered so far, and while wardrobe improvements, especially the weapons department, may still be on the horizon in 1.1, today's blog isn't about appearances. It's ultimately about the experience of being a vampire. That experience comes to life not just in how you look, but in how you play. With that in mind, let's talk about combat stats, because they're about to get massive overhaul. And again, talking about like the overhauls and stats, I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but talking about this, also PvP balances, which I don't give a shit about, but you know, this game has a big PvP community. This made me happy to read through this. And talking about soft caps and hard caps, we're implementing caps in two ways: soft caps and hard caps. These determines how bonuses apply and whether or not that, again, we're getting into technical things here, but the fact that they're listening to feedback and revamping a whole system based on that feedback, I wouldn't have complained at all if these devs were, well, the game's out, we're done developing. But they're working on this. They're listening, they're gathering data, they're gathering feedback, and they're making improvements based on all of that. And here's soft caps are the first line of defense to keep stats from becoming problematic. You'll encounter these through long-term sources like gear, potions, passive spell bonuses, and blood types. And then they have hard caps, which allow you to burst through your soft caps for another big bonus. But then there's a final line where you can't go beyond. And that's cool. Here's the Fusion Forge, which is going to be for combining stats on gear. There's going to be things for blood. And they're going to give stats through blood and rewarding you for getting the better blood types, because sometimes the 100% blood type doesn't feel that rewarding versus like the 90% in how difficult it is to find. And now they're actually giving you stat bonuses for the better blood types. Better power. I'm super excited for when 1.0 comes out. So thanks for the massive update here. This played in really well with today's list and putting this game again in my brain, but I can't be upset about this. And now that the ad break is over, welcome back from the ads, everyone. We were just talking about the V-Rising developer update that they just put out. I'm going to pour myself a drink, which I should have done during the ad break, but welcome back from the ads. We are about to get into the top 3 games of the year, and I'm actually kind of curious if people in chat want to guess what they think, what they've missed from this list so far, because I'd be curious to see if people can gather the very well hidden clues that I've left throughout this stream and throughout the last week. But number 3 is you find new games to you that are ancient. My first instinct was to say, well, you're ancient. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just the first thing that popped in my brain. I'm sorry, Misty. My number 3, not wrong. My number 3 is a game that I had a certain expectation of. And I'm glad that I didn't super research this game, because I saw the initial stuff for this and I was like, oh, that's just a survival game. And it looked interesting. It looked cool. But early on while playing this, my expectations got shattered and I was surprised time and time again in this very short game, by just the presentation and the storytelling of the game. And for that reason, my number 3 is Indica. It's in parts a serious story about a sort of, again, coming of age story of this nun who is struggling with her fate and her beliefs. It has fun and jokes in it in ways that I didn't expect it. It has serious moments in it where you get shocked into this reality and into this world and into this thing where rightfully your character, who comes out of the protective shelter of being from a monastery, gets confronted with the real world and asks herself these questions. Is God real? And the most daring thing that this game did, at the end of the game, it didn't give you an answer, it just ended the game, and I went, what? Is that it? And it got me thinking, 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 and this ending that it just stops. The game just stops, and it never answers its own question. And it's a badass way to end it, and it never overstayed its welcome. It had these different gameplay sections, these different explorations, these different conversations. That's the creepy nun game, yes, Johnny. And it's a game that I still think about, because the ending was literally just like, oh, so I never get my answer. I never get my answer. Like, you never get your answer. Like, my fave, it's so good. It's so good. And I never got my answer. And I still don't have my answer. And I'm still thinking about this. And you know what? The fucking Satanist tag on this stream is happy that this game exists, because we get to explore this religion in a world, in a game that almost says, yeah, is God real? Is the world fair and just? Is there such a thing as a reward, as like this resolution is, and putting your religion and this stat in like a gameplay term with this like arcadey token thing, and this box that you can shake, and I was like, there has to be a secret ending, there has to be a thing here. This can't be the end. And yes, it was the end, and I respect that. I fucking respect this game. And more than anything else, this is the game that got me thinking and kept me thinking, and it surprised me in more than one way. Yeah, the nun section, where the nun came out of my, I was, what the fuck just happened? And the little arcade sections with the arcade games, and going like, what is this? And where does this come into play? How does this work? What is happening here? It gives you questions, and you want to get answers, and sometimes it just doesn't give you the answer, because the game goes, you fucking figure it out. That's on you. And it's almost like, some of my favorite movies are Blade Runner and The Thing. And it's almost like the ending of those movies, where the movie goes, is he an alien, or is he a replicant in the terms of Blade Runner? And then the movie goes, figure it out. The same thing with Inception, where the movie ends with the spinning top, and it goes, is this a dream? You figure it out. Even though in Inception we get the answer, sadly enough. But just an ending that makes you go, oh fuck, you're not going to tell me? You're not going to give me that closure? You're going to keep my brain engaged with this? And I love that, and I respect that. And especially in a video game, Number three. Classic litter kind of too, with the whole ending that forces you, yeah, think and make your own conclusion. Kind of visually reminds me of Alice. I can see that as well. I can 100% see that. Homie, what an excellent time for Homie to raid in, because we're talking about Indica. Homie Tan, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the raid. How's it going? How you doing? I can close this tab now. Homie was just live with Tan. Was it Cozy in there too? I know it was Homie and Tan driving and streaming. So I hope you had a good stream. I hope the drive is going well and safe. Welcome in, everyone. If you haven't followed Homie yet, go check out. Sorry, burpees. Go check out Homie streams. Because, well, first of all, if you don't, Homie will find you and laser through you with her eyes because she has a new superpower now. By the way, I would change scenes, but I'm doing my game of the year as well. I'll talk about that in a second, but I don't want to change away from the scene because I've set things up in a precarious way that I don't want to crash and tumble down on me. Anyway, welcome in, Homie. Thank you for the raid. Everyone go follow Homie. Check out Homie's streams, and if you don't, you get lasered. And also, Homie's just a fantastic person who deserves to get followed. I just mentioned Homie earlier for Vampire Therapist as well, by the way, which is one of the games on my list. So go do that. Go. I don't know if I disabled the random clips here. No, I didn't. Okay, cool.
Remember the Flappy Bird error? Wait, what do you mean? What Flappy Bird error?
Flappy Birth.
Flappy Bird.
Wait, did I say birth?
You've had
Did
a
I say
Flappy
birth?
Birth? Ah!
Did I say
Oh.
birth?
Yes.
Flappy Girth.
Flappy Birth.
Slappy Girth.
Yeah.
In the beginning, there was Flappy Birth.
The first
Begin-
flap ever.
In the beninging.
Beninging? Damn, Homie. Damn. And for those of you who just came in with the raid, hi, I'm Seth. I stream every day. I play a lot of different video games. Let me slap your girth. Exactly. I play a lot of different games. I talk about video games a lot. I talk about mental health a lot. Today is a special day because every year I like to do my favorite games of the year. This year we're doing a top 25 games of the year. We're currently on my number 3, which we just finished talking about. So you're all just in time to hear about the best 2 games of the year. I'm very excited to present this and talk about these games. For anyone interested in seeing the games you missed, I will be doing a quick rundown of this list after this. So if you want to know what the rest of the games are that you missed, I'll do a quick rundown, and I'll also post them on Discord later so people can see and be there. Also, No Foreign, Cozy, Hello, Meal. Did I miss anyone? Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome on in. Hope everyone's having a good day. And yes, I saw Tantan mentioned, was it Tantan mentioned this? Yes, it was Tantan. I love your background. Yes, I had this idea of doing a stage because why not? Why not just do a fun stage as your background for one of these? I had the idea of doing a stage, and I had this. I can actually show you. I had this empty stage. Also, Cherry isn't actually technically there. Cherry is just a pop-in, but I had this empty stage, and I put Cherry in here because Cherry graciously provided me with an intro to the stream like she did last year. And I was like, well, then Cherry needs to be on stage. And when I did that, I was like, well, now the audience is a little empty. So 10 minutes before I went live today, I went into my meme folder and I got out a bunch of the faces that I photoshopped this year, which also feels like a good culmination of this year in streaming for other people. And I got out a bunch of people's faces and I just slapped them in the audience, and it made me fucking happy to have everyone here. And bye, Gozy. Have fun with Tan and Homie. I'm sorry that they're gonna ruin your day. It's mean. But you'll have fun. Please. Thank you so much for the raid. Can't wait to hear about these games. Again, there'll be a recap on Discord later for anyone who's interested. But yeah, I had a lot of fun putting people's faces here, and it made me really, really happy to put in all these faces. Watch Levad. Oh yeah, I'll also make a highlight of that, by the way. So there's that. But yes, we just talked about my number 3, which is Indica. Amazing game. And now my number 2. My number 2 for a whole chunk of this year like with Cassette Beast last year, felt like it was going to be my number one. It was such a shoe-in. It was such a game that felt like it was made for me. It's so set-coded. It's addictive. It's fun. It's rewarding. It has great sound designs. I played it on Steam. I played it on my Switch. I played it so much on my Switch. It's basically the reason that my Nintendo Switch got used for the most part at all this year. And it makes me happy that this game is getting so much attention from the non-indie gaming space as well. That even people who barely play indie games or never play indie games are talking about this game. Yes, it's Balatro. Balatro is dopamine. It's dopamine. It is rewards in rewards. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It is, for anyone who hasn't played or seen Balatro, what the fuck have you done this year? But it's basically, you're playing poker hands. You're not actually playing poker. You're just playing up poker hands. And you're using this deck of 52 cards that during the game, you get to change the cards in there. You get to change or delete cards from there. You get to basically manipulate your whole deck. And then you get these jokers that give you gameplay benefits, giving you bonus points for playing a spade, or giving you bonus points for playing a straight, or giving you bonus rewards for playing three of a kinds, whatever. And your goal is to just match these boss blinds at the end, which are just like point caps that you need to pass. It is the image. It's the meme. I couldn't not have it there because even the Balatro Twitter account uses this meme and it felt so appropriate. But yes, this for the longest time I was so sure that this was my number one. Yeah, it's Charlie's favorite game. I was so sure that this was going to be my number one game all year long. And it's definitely one of the games that I've put the most time into. And that I've done the challenges in this game. I've tried to get all the unlocks in this. I like to run around and do like different builds, and it rewards you for doing these things with sound and visual designs that just tell you that you're doing cool shit. From the game at some point just like speeding up the sounds because you're scoring so many points and getting so far into this game, this endless run. You love the red letters? Bonus points for listen. I don't know how you caught that attention of the first slide there, Sprout, but that was meant to be a secret. But maybe I made it a little too obvious. But Balatro is such a good game. It is fantastic, and it makes me so happy to see that this game is getting so much love and attention as well. It's almost to the point where this game has become a little bit of a problem in the indie space because it is so dominating in a lot of ways, because a lot of people who don't play indie games have heard of Balatro, and this is their one indie game. And this is everything coming together in games that I love. And even I have to say, this is hurting indie games. And I'm so happy that the developer of this game is shouting out other indie devs and saying, look, I got lucky. Here's other games that are also good. And shouting out games that were inspired by Balatro. We're already getting games inspired by Balatro, and the designer's like, here's these cool games. And people are like, oh, you're copying Balatro. And the dev is like, fuck it, yeah, they're cool. And seeing that wholesome nature there and seeing someone interact with the community in cool ways and giving back, and even the whole thing about and around this game just makes me happy. Even the little story of this developer adding bonus jokers to the game because the publisher misheard him and went, oh yeah, you're adding 150. And he was like, I said 120, but I don't want to correct you. So yeah, I'll just add in 30 more jokers. There's so much to love here, and all the like little references, and they dedicated half the stage to Seth, but gold. Look to the right. Look to the right of the stage. You're here. You're here with me. Can't escape it. You can't escape it. But yeah, this game is so much right. Again, that like it's the whole package: visuals, gameplay, sound design, music, Dev is relatable. Yeah. Also, like the developer being like, I don't want to correct you, and also like the whole like accepting Game Awards thing, where it's like I'm just gonna show a picture of my face instead of like parading around, and there's nothing wrong with that. You deserve it, but instead of parading around, being modest during all of that, and just I want to remain in the background a little bit. I love everything about this. This is such a good game. Unfortunately, or fortunately, this is my number 2 of the year, which brings me to the last game on this list. The last game on this list came out a few months ago and has a lot of things in there that before the game came out, I was already interested in the game, but it has a lot of things in there that normally don't make me want to play a game like that. Being a shooter is already like, I don't like shooters that much. Being able to lose a lot of your progress and a lot of your gear for dying already makes me go like, oh, that's not really what I want. But it does it in such a cute looking package. It does it with such an addicting gameplay loop with music blasting your ears that is just the weirdest kind of music in a video game of this year as well, in a way. This is like lo-fi hip-hop beats. But then rewarding you with all these cool weapons and these modifications you can make to these weapons. Yes, it's Sedolfter, by the way. Hold on. Why is that number 2 there? Okay, this is where I have to make an admission. That is not a typo. That is not a typo. Bunny, I'm so happy you mentioned this earlier, that you were like, I'd be tinkering with this until the end of it. This was the problem with my list. This was my problem with this list. I've so very rarely run into this issue with the top game, but I was shuffling around my number 1 and 2, Sulfur and Balatro, for so much, and I have this board in my kitchen that I literally have these things on. I have this board, and I literally kept shuffling them around and going like, this one I'm feeling bad and struggling and like literally every time I walk past it, I would just shuffle these around and let it mull and let it sit. And at some point I just went, fuck it. For the first time ever, and I hate doing this, okay? I don't want to do this for the gimmick, but for the first time ever, I have 2 games of the year. I'm sorry, both of these are number 2, but are also both number 1. I could not decide. I could literally not decide between these. And every time I did, I felt bad for the other one. And like I never had this problem. So at some point I went, they're both gonna be number 1 or number 2 in this regard. And from the moment I decided that this was locked in, last week, I was like, I'm gonna ham it up. I'm gonna fucking live with it, and that's why I put in so many fucking things about Sulfur, about Balatro, and I never mentioned Sulfur. And I was wondering if people would pick up on this, because I was like, I'm gonna ham it the fuck up, because you have to go with this. And Sprout, you mentioned the opening slide, and I'm so happy that you just mentioned this earlier, because if we go here, and I don't want to move myself. I don't want to move. Fuck it, we'll just do it here. Yes, I highlight Balatro. I put the Balatro thing in there, but if you look at the letters, and I was very afraid that someone was going to notice, it spells out Sulfu and then an R at the bottom in the gray text. I put it in there, and I was wondering if someone would catch it. I was wondering if someone would catch on to that. Yes. Dedication to the bit. But yeah, before we talk more about the rest of that, Sulphur is such a good game that completely caught me by surprise. And to mention Sprout again, Sprout, I'm so glad that you also got into this game and also went through that same loop I did, where like, this is not my kind of game usually. But holy fuck, I want to play more, and I want to play more, and I want to play more. And getting the different weapons and getting the different upgrades, the different what did it called again? Enchantments, whatever, oils. And a little feel like one more run, one more thing, one more push on, and then you die and you lose it, and you go, fuck. I want to go again. I want to try out this gun. I want to try out this oil. I want to try out this thing. Making a whole fridge filled with protein. The little recipes, the little crafting, the little exploration. Yes, eventually I just started wikiing the recipes, but the little experimentation with like, can I combine this? Can I do this? What kind of food do I get here? It felt so much fun, and it still really does. And also seeing the updates that the developer has already pushed out so far, listening to feedback, adding storage as one of the things where like, well, we didn't plan for this, but here's storage now because you wanted it. And instead of giving you storage, they actually went, you have to earn it though. The progression, the presentation, this game is so fucking good. It is so fucking good. And as I said, I could not for the life of me figure out. I hate to watch and run, but I gotta run like 4 minutes for family thing. Hell yeah, do your thing, please. Thank you so much for being here, buddy. You got to see the end of this. Do your thing. Hope you have a fun time. Drive safe. And thank you for being here. But yeah, this was the most difficult decision I ever had to make in terms of my number one and my number two. And at some point I went, if this is the way I feel, then maybe they should both just be number one. And getting to do it in a little bit of a bit here and making a little bit of a joke out of it helped my decision. But it's true. Like, none of the other games this year, and they're all really good games, okay, but none of the other games this year caught me as hard as both Balatro and Sulphur, and made me want to play as much as Balatro and Sulphur, and made me think about the games and look up the games and engage with the games as much as either of those games. And in terms of, I don't really do numerical ratings a lot, like 1 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 or all these things, but in both the cases of Balatro and Sulphur, those games are just like the gold standard for me, for what I want from a video game, from what I'm after from a video game. Are they perfect games? No, both games have issues, but that's not the point. I can look past these issues. I can ignore these issues and have a fun game that just occupies my brain and makes me want to play more and more and more and more and more and more and more. So I've done this list in one form or another for a lot of years now. I've done them on stream for 4 years now, but also before that, when I still reviewed video games, I've done this list. I've done this list even when I wasn't reviewing video games for myself, because I just like to make lists in a way. And this is the first time that I've done this, and I feel bad about that because it feels like a cop-out in a way, right? Having two number ones feels like a cop-out, but it is. And that's why I was kind of smiling when I was talking about this yesterday with the Indie Game Awards. Was like, I wish there was more than one, because a tier list ranking for what? They're already ranked. Yeah, they're so different. They're so cool, but they both deserve to be number one for me. And it felt so bad every time I moved one around, and I looked at it and I went, oh. And this is a good time to go into the post show. So, where is my button? There we go. There we go. There we go. Yeah, again, for those of you who weren't here to start and didn't hear this bit, the if anyone has questions, this is the time. If anyone wants to share their game of the year, this is also the time. This is the time for that, Misty. So if you have questions, do it. But as I said, I felt a little bad about this, about this being a cop out where I didn't have a top one game, where I didn't decide on one. But it also felt like I'm a little bit transparent in this scene, by the way. It also felt like a little bit of a struggle, and I've never felt as bad about having to choose between two games. It's like last year when I had Cassette Beast locked in as number one, and then Lethal Company came in. I felt bad about Cassette Beast not being number one, but I was certain that Lethal Company should be my number one, right? It was one of those things where like I felt bad about it, but it was easy to decide ultimately. Sorry, you feel bad about choosing? Hell no. It's a great thing. It's a great thing to have. Having two games that are that good that I had to fight, and I actually started having like, this is the not fun part, but like I literally started to have like a little bit of anxiety over presenting it this way, because I don't like doing this. Okay, it's a gimmick, it's a cop out in a way, but I ultimately just, both of these games deserve it, and both of these games should be here. And even when I did the list, even when I put Balatro at number 2 in the slides for the bit, I felt bad about doing that. I wanted to give him both number 1 in the ranking, but I was like, well, if I go from 3 to 1, everyone is onto it, right? Everyone knows. I needed to present Balatro as my number 2 because I wanted people to see this. You haven't beaten enough games to be able to give Game of the Year. Fluvy? Absolute bullshit. You do not need to beat a game to say it's your favorite game, or to say that you think another game is better. It is what makes you happy. It is where you put it. I don't think this notion of needing to beat games is in there. Yes, I beat... Well, I technically didn't beat Victory Heat Rally, if you want to go there. I beat my top 10, in a way, sure. But, like, you don't need to. Like, some of the games in my top 25 I didn't beat. You just talk about what you want. Like, if a game makes you happy, it makes you happy. If a game makes you feel a certain way, it makes you feel a certain way. Don't let anything gatekeep you out of the feelings. Yeah, Sulfur doesn't even have the ending programmed in yet. By the way, I beat Sulfur. I beat the final boss in Sulfur off stream, and I kind of felt bad about that as well. I was like, damn, I wish this was on stream, because I just did a run and it just started being really good, and I kept going and going and going. I was like, oh, we're at the end. Which is again proof to why it's so good, because I kept playing and I wanted to play more and more and more, and one more run, and just the rewards. By the way, I had another bit prepared for today that I didn't ultimately end up going with, mostly because ad breaks being in there, and not to blame the raid for this, but raid distraction as well. There was one more bit I had planned where I was going to pretend like Balatro was going to call me and threaten me for putting it at number 2, but I think we had enough bits already as well. Wish you could short into the dungeon/castle. Yeah, the castle for sure. Tiny Glade, a metaphor, and listen, Tiny Glade screams by me every time I scroll my wish list. Let's go back here quickly. Hold up. Every time I think about beating games and where they go on my list, how many games here have I not beaten, or are games that aren't beatable? Lo-Fi, not really a game, not really something you can beat. Death Note, not really something you can beat. Planet Crafter, haven't beaten it. Web Fishing, not something you can beat. Pal World, technically beat it, I guess. Duck Detective, sure. Vampire Therapist, yeah. Backpack Battles, no. Hell, didn't even play a whole lot besides the demo. Core Keeper we didn't beat. Specifically, Hades didn't beat. Speedrun, didn't beat on stream. Technically not beatable. It's like a whole thing, like a whole list. Also my honorable mention, where like I can talk about this. And for anyone who missed any of these games, by the way, here's a quick rundown without all the preamble and all that stuff. But we have Spirit City, Lo-Fi Sessions, Death Note: The Killer Within, Planet Crafter, Web Fishing, Pal World, Duck Detective, Vampire Therapist, Backpack Battles, Conscript, Core Keeper, Hades 2, Grun, Gory Cuddly Carnage, Goblin Auto Club Manager, Dungeon Crawler, Sorry We're Closed, Indiana Jones, Crow Country, Victory Heat Rally, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Tavern Talk, V Rising, Indica, Balatro, and Sedolfter, or Sulfur, if you would. But yeah, I'm notoriously bad at beating games because I don't think you need to beat a game to be able to appreciate it. Sometimes I play a game and I'm like, oh, I had my fill of this game. I don't need to beat it, right? I had happy moments of the game and I can stop here because I got what I wanted from the game. Sometimes the game is so bad I don't want to beat it. Sometimes the game, you know, sometimes I just don't have time to beat it. Like something like Metaphor, like it's how much hours? Like 70 hours, 100 hours. It's okay if you go, oh, I've seen everything I needed to see to know that I like this game. So, Fluvi, don't let anyone or anything keep you from putting games on a list or where you want to put them. It's also, Sprout, thank you for what you said there, where you said it's honest. This is always a problem where finishing games makes me sad. The Core Keeper. This is always a problem when it comes to these lists, is that ultimately this is a moment in time where I feel a certain way about a certain game. And that's why I also like doing retrospectives, like mid-year going like, okay, where does my list stand now? Do I still agree with this list the way it stands? Do I still think the way about this? Did I miss a game? I didn't play Animal Well yet. I didn't play Another Crab's Treasure yet. Maybe when I play this game, I think, hey, these should also be in here somewhere. So going back at these lists half a year from now is also always fun. Where like, do I still agree with this? It wasn't a skill issue. Yeah, it wasn't a skill issue. Well, no, trying to finish the game made me sad, but not because the idea of ending the game, but trying to finish it made me sad. Was I saying? Yeah, having these lists, it always feels like a kill your darlings situation where you just have to pick and you have to be brutal. And that's, again, in the pre-show, when I did the honorable mentions list, that's why I wanted to talk about some of these games, because some games I feel could be in here or could be somewhere, but for one way or another, I just couldn't get them to be on this list over anything else. Or, would I put Marvel vs. Capcom on this list? If Marvel vs. Capcom came out for the first time this year, hell yeah. But it didn't come out for the first time this year. Silent Hill as well. If Silent Hill came out this year for the first time ever, it would have been on there, but it didn't come out. I already played this game, so it felt bad to put it in there. Top 10 all time, good question. End of the year. Every year, end of the year. But to answer your question there, did anything from this year work its way into your all-time top 10, you think? That's a little bit of a difficult question in terms of it shucks Silent Hill 2 wasn't there. Ultimately, I wasn't blown away by the game the way I could have been blown away, not because it's a bad game, but because I've already played Silent Hill 2. And it just felt like, a massive improvement to it. And I said this earlier, I will never play the old Silent Hill 2 ever again. I'll only play the new one. But I already played the game. I already got the story beats. I already analyzed the story. And while I was playing the Silent Hill 2 remake, I kept going like, this is why this is happening. I wasn't getting told a story. I was retelling a story through playing it again. And that's, that's difficult. But to come back to your question there, Sprout, the top 10, Do I think anything made its way into my top 10 this year? Potentially with the passage of time, I think there is all the chance for either Sulfur or Balatro to like find its way into my top 10. But the problem with my top 10 is that there's a lot of games in there that are. It's like watching. That's such a good description there. It's like watching the movie after you read the book. Yeah, it's exactly that. A lot of games in my top 100 are also in there because there's like a lot of nostalgia in there and a lot of, there's so much good stuff in there that it always feels a little difficult for something to worm its way into my top 10. And it usually happens with time, where like I need to let it sink in and mull it over a little bit and let it happen. So eventually, can they become a part of my top 10? Yes. Will they be in there this year? No. That's just the way it is. It usually takes time. It usually takes time for me to get something in my top 10 or for something to move in there. Did you have any honorable mentions you wanted to talk about that you didn't? Not a whole lot, because I talked about a whole lot of honorable mentions. So most of the honorable mentions were like I said, I basically had a top 50 here. Just didn't rank the other ones. But yeah, if you're curious for the top 10, my favorite video games of all time, the top 100 is somewhere at the end of the year, start of the new year. I don't know when yet, but that is also a list that is already made. So I just need to actually execute and put it in there. Yes, actually, Fluvi, but before I get to Sprout's other question, Fluvi, yes, there is one honorable mention that I didn't talk about. And not because I didn't think it should be mentioned or because I forgot about it, but because it was a really difficult one to process. And that was Infinite Wealth, the Yakuza Infinite Wealth, or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That was one where I love the Yakuza Like a Dragon, as it is now, series. And I actually made an attempt to start them on stream, but just because of the nature of how I stream and what I stream, it's just difficult to do a series like that. But the reason that isn't in there is I love Infinite Wealth. I love Like a Dragon. I just like the original Yakuza games better. I like the original combat style better. And as good as Infinite Wealth is, and if Bunny Slaughter was here, I would probably get an earful for that. But as good as Infinite Wealth is, I felt like it was just more of the other one, and I just kept going. I wish I could punch people in the face in the real time combat way. So love the story, love the game. Just again, in terms of how good is the game, it's every right to be in like a top 10 and or like even people's favorite games. But I found it very hard to place that game somewhere emotionally in terms of like, it's not the kind of Yakuza I like. It's not the character I like, and it's that. So that one wasn't in the honorable mentions. And Sprout's question, what game from your list do you think did the most in terms of representation? I feel like we're getting to a point where a lot of games are giving appropriate representation, even in a way that doesn't focus on it. And what I mean here is, sorry, we're closed, referring to Robin as a non-binary character, and not putting any. It just they never explain, they never go into this. It's just they, them, done. And I think more games doing that, and just don't focus on it. Just make it a thing. We don't need to make it a message. It's integrated without making it special, because making it special, there's nothing wrong with that either, by the way. But making it special and drawing attention to it, that shows that it's still not the norm. And games that just do it and keep going, I love that. I think that's amazing. And Tavern Talk also just doing that, just being inclusive as fuck with all these versatile and diverse characters. Yeah, right. And like making it a character trait makes it feel like it's something that has to be standing out versus something that's just a part of someone. So, what game do I personally think that the most in terms of inclusivity? I would say Tavern Talk in a lot of ways. That's some good there. Yeah, Tavern Talk. Sorry, we're closed. I don't think of anything else off the top of my brain. I mean, web fishing with the straight title, very inclusive. Very woke. Yeah, right. Another game I didn't talk about, which could have easily been somewhere as well, Beastie Ball. I just didn't play enough of that yet. Very pog. Yes, Sorry We're Close is great. I love that game. That's why it's number 10. Beastie Ball is another one that could have been on the list had I played more of it. I need to play more Beastie Ball before I get there, but there was also a lot of inclusivity and representation in there with like the character creator, and I just like it when games give you make your character, but don't be like, are you a dude or are you a chick? You just select your body type, go play, right? Guilty Gear, yeah, but it's not a this year game, I think so. Guilty Gear isn't this year, right? No. What is the free Epic game today, by the way? I didn't even claim that yet. TerraTech. I have no idea what that is. I'm going to claim it. Epic is giving away a game for free every day, by the way, for people who don't know. So just go there every day and claim them. This is Seth Awards? This is the end of it, Como. Hi, Como. Other games I didn't talk about, Dragon Age. I like Dragon Age. I really do. I will defend Dragon Age the Veilguard because I think it is a return to form for BioWare. But in a way, it was like a game that was just like, I'm overwhelmed, and I had fun. I like the game. All the people complaining about the writing are just absolutely not playing the game and just complaining and parroting what they're saying online. If it's not a game for you, it's not a game for you. That's fair. But I think a lot of the online hate towards the game is just people being sent there from right-wing grifters like Asmongold, and can go suck ass. Mongold. But yeah, I didn't talk about Dragon Age the Veilguard because, in a way, it was a good game. I had fun with it, but it just felt like, a AAA game still. Star Wars Outlaw, didn't talk about that game either, because I only just started playing it, but I don't think Star Wars Outlaw would have even gotten an honorable mention at this point because it's just open world game and overwhelming. Fun game, but open world overwhelming. Just like copy paste Assassin's Creed with Star Wars assets. So I don't think that gets that either. So much gets stressed about this stuff. Like, yeah, that's exactly it. And that's the problem with a lot of like AAA games nowadays. I feel like a lot of AAA games just want to put stuff in there. Well, you've been in Manchester. Oh, I wasn't critiquing you, come. I was just saying this is the after party. I hope you had a fun day though. Sorry if I made it sound like it was critique. That was definitely not where I was trying to. And if you are curious, this VOD will be published for people, and there will be a list on Discord. So if anyone wants to see the list again, I will post it on Discord later. But yeah, I feel like this has also been the year for like a lot of cozy, happy brain games in a way. Um, Dino Market is a great example there as well, which is like just games that are just like cozy, know what they are, don't overcharge for what it is. Web fishing definitely falls in that category, knows what it is, doesn't overcharge. Um, did make the list. Gordlets knows what it is, doesn't overcharge, makes brain happy. Minami Lane knows what it is, doesn't overcharge. Haven't played it, but looks cool. It's meant to be there for yeah. Yeah, that's why I like Indiana Jones open world, because it gives you more about the universe versus like a game like Star Wars Outlaws, which is just like poop. I didn't think you were critiquing. Okay, okay. I was just wanted to make sure that I didn't give up the wrong vibes. But yeah, we've had so many fun games this year, and like I said earlier, like you could probably cut out like the top 10 of the year, and I still would have been happy with this year because Dungeon Crawler, Goblin Auto Club Manager, Gory, Grun, Hades, these games are good. Um, I'm gonna ask a self question in lieu of people getting me into this path, but um, here's a self question, and feel free to answer as well in chat. But do I think the gaming market is getting oversaturated with trends? We saw that this year hard in things like Balatro clones popping out everywhere. We saw it hard with Vampire Survivor clones popping up everywhere. Is the gaming market getting oversaturated with clones? And even though I'm asking myself this question, I will also answer. I think copying another video game, getting inspired by another video game is totally fine. But there needs to be something there. You need to give me a reason to want to play your game over the other one. Because if I can choose between Vampire Survivors and your ripoff, what makes me want to choose your ripoff? Give me a reason. I want to play your game. But you have to give me a reason, right? And if your game is just Vampire Survivor but worse, like Witchcraft Survivors, for example, right? It's a good game, but it's not as good as Vampire Survivors. So why would I play your game? Are you just hoping that the people who are done with Vampire Survivors jump onto your game? Because I'm gonna run into problems. So there's a lot of inspiration, and Balatro is actually interesting in that there's a lot of games inspired by Balatro that are going their own route, like Billionaire. Dungeons and Degenerates is a good example as well. The calculator game that they did, that I haven't actually played it, but I saw it recently. That looks interesting. It's like literally a game where you have a calculator that you get to change the buttons on, and then you have to solve math equations with it. But every button only has a limited amount of uses. There's so many cool inspirations for like, oh my god, you're doing something interesting. You can clearly see this is Balatro, but you're actually just making it interesting for me. You're giving me a reason to play it. Where I feel a lot of Vampire Survivor clones don't give me that reason. And then you have standouts like Bloodshed and Spell Brigade and Entropy that do give me a reason to play it, because even though I think they're still not as good as Vampire Survivors, they're at least unique in a way. Don't forget Gamey's dying via based off whiny crybabies on Twitter. Oh my god, like the online echo chamber is just starting to get to a point where I'm like, every time someone on Twitter says that a game is bad, I'm like, that's probably a good game then. It just got to the point where every time someone on Twitter is like, this game's woke, I'm like, cool, it's a good game. Thank you. People are copying too soon. That's one. If you wait and remake an idea fresh, people might learn. If you do this, you can make a cooler game. Yep. Yeah, you can see that. We don't need same Pokemon games every year. Yep, you can see that. You can see that. Like you can easily look at the games that copy other games or get inspired by other games. I should say. Let's be fair. You can see that. You can be like, this game is trying to copy Hades versus this game is inspired by Hades, or this game is trying to copy Vampire Survivors versus inspired by. And I talk about this so often with Vampire Survivors. So many games just don't understand that it's not just the gameplay, but also the sounds and the things that the game rewards you with. That they're lacking. They're lacking the soul of the game they're trying to copy. Like all the options available, Field of Mystery is a great example. Stardew likes are everywhere, but make enough of them and you end up with something better. Yeah. And Field of Mystery is a good example because that was in my honorable mentions. I am tired of Stardew clones. I am fucking tired of them because most of them are just Stardew Valley, but worse. Because they copy Stardew Valley. And they don't copy the soul of Stardew Valley. And Fields of Mystria is inspired by Stardew Valley. And it gives it its own soul. Right? It's like Stardew Valley. It's a Stardew Valley like, you can say. But you can tell the difference between that and like a bunch of the ripoffs, right? I actually think a better way to say this is, I've kind of been doing this now, is saying copy versus inspiration. This game is a copy, this game is an inspiration. The sound, the light, the exact ease of access. So tired of seeing Stardew Valley likes and Genshin like, yep. Yeah, it's just, you can see that this was rushed out by someone trying to get in on the hype train versus someone who was like, I love this game, I want to make my own kind of game. I got inspired by this. And again, I think Vampire Survivor has a lot of copies that are just copies and not a lot of inspired ones. And Balatro is actually the opposite, where there's like a lot of games inspired by Balatro that aren't a copy of Balatro. And that feels interesting. That feels cool. There's some. Bingo Bingo is a good example. One that I was like, you're just trying to get in on the hype train. We need more cool RTS games. Holy shit, RTS is a genre that has just died because of bad games, right? I'm gonna make my own StarCraft. Okay, but it's shit. So good. The RTS genre killed the RTS genre. The RTS genre is actually a really good example of what happens when you keep making when you keep copying games instead of making a game. Like the StarCraft devs that made their own game, what is it, like Stormgate or whatever, and like, this game is shit. Like, you might be the original StarCraft devs, but you made a shit game. Because you're trying to cash in on your name and on your pedigree, which is clearly not deserved. And that is also, again, that's a big part of how I rank games in my game of the year list. Would I rather play this than the other game? That's a reason why Hades 2 doesn't rank as high as it could be, because Hades 1 exists, so I don't need Hades 2 in that regard. And that's why. But it pushed. Yeah, exactly. The RTS genre just tried to make the next big thing, and then people got tired of it because there was just so much shit. EA also had a big part in this, though, with Command and Conquer, trying to like capitalize on it so much with microtransactions and pumping out a shit game. THQ with Dawn of War. Dawn of War was a great fucking strategy game, and then they made Dawn of War 2, and it was completely different. And people were like, oh, I was still like the original, but that's okay. And then they made Dawn of War 3, and it was just shit because they just rushed the game out trying to capitalize on it again. And that's why I say, just because you made a good game doesn't mean you can do it again. It's like, that goes for everything. That goes for every studio. Just because you made one great game doesn't mean you can do it again. And so often do we get proven that. Frostpunk is dope. Didn't play Frostpunk 2 yet, so that's a game that wasn't on this list. That could also be here in a way. If you told me at the start of the year as well, like what games do you think will be in here, I would have expected Drug Dealer Sim 2 to be a big hit. That was just a big poo poo. It's sitting on my wish list. Yeah, so many games I want to play. I will say though, I'm very excited by that Sengoku game. I want to get that. If I can get one person to play it with me, I will play that game. Scar. What? Someone say something? What game? I just saw a video for it. It was like Sengoku Dynasty, it's called. It's an open world survival game, but you're playing in like a Japanese village builder thing as well. Speaking of Sulfur, by the way, Sulfur just got a patch. Dogs can no longer be cheesed by doing that little backstab. Fuck you, Sulfur. New enemy mutation, elemental trails. Holy shit, there's new stuff in here too? Not just improvements. Okay, we're going to look at the patch note in a second. Oh shit, there's an ad break. Well, we can use the patch notes here, or the ad break for the patch notes. Performance overhaul. The game runs smoother on all machines. Yes. Replace all PNG sprites with SVGs, switching out pixel for vector art. Think of it as upgrading from a 20. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's just better. Yep. Effects, environments, and levels have been reworked to be less taxing on your hardware. Good. Loading times are noticeably faster. Melee enemies now also have the ability to use elemental effects. Aha, okay. Bullet holes are now limitless and will never tank performance. Okay, good. Aftershock has been nerfed. Aftershock has been nerfed, Sprout, and has a 10% chance instead of 100% chance of triggering. Note, later areas like dungeons still need more work, but the frame rate is definitely more stable with fewer hiccups. We know what more to do, but it's Christmas. Yeah, it's Christmas. Yep. Bug fixes. The dogs can no longer be cheesed. Fixed an issue with item names. They didn't properly localize. That's fine. Stiff leg now correctly misses the right arm. Not the wrong one. Okay. Fixes elemental damage from poison. Okay, cool. The rocket enchantment is back. Dope. The dolphin has been buffed. Huh. Okay. And a new enemy mutation. And they're saying the next year, or the next phase, because they're done fixing, we're getting more guns and magic and future areas. Mostly behind the scenes upgrade for gameplay quality. Yeah, I kind of want to dive in now and see what it brings. Also, Slay the Princess Sprout. Yes, that didn't come out this year, even though it just released on Switch this year. My main metric is, did it come out on Steam this year, yeah or nay? Is a lot of the things I look at, or like, did it already come out somewhere else? Did I have the ability to play this game before now? Is a lot of my metric. And Slay the Princess, unfortunately, was a last year game. Though looking back at last year, Slay the Princess would have been in my top 10. So Slay the Princess is definitely one that, like, I missed playing it last year, and looking back, it would have been somewhere in my top 10. And then there's other games like Arco. I need to play more of that before I decide. Is Dynasty a follow-on? No, it's a different game. It's by the makers of Medieval Dynasty. It's its own. It just uses the same name because it's in that period, I guess. Gameplay looks entirely different. Yeah, no, it's very different. It's like I said, it's like an open world survival game. I'll play some. Oh, you want to get it? I mean, listen, I'm easily convinced. And by that I mean I was asking people who wanted to play. I will buy it after stream then. I mean, I probably was going to buy it after stream already because I really just want to play it. But yeah, that was everything. We went through everything. I think I've run out of things to talk about, and that's just basically, I'm very proud of myself. I did it in 3 hours, and I kind of said half an hour pre-show, hour and a half to 2 hours and half an hour for the after party, and I did it. I did it in the time I gave myself mentally. I was prepared to go longer if needed because I don't want to rush things, but I basically ballparked the correct duration of things. So I'm proud of that. For anyone who is here and wasn't there for the whole thing, and you are curious for my top 25, I'll post it on Discord later. A pretty polished experience. Thank you. I wanted to make it something a little bit better. I wanted to throw in a few jokes. Actually, like I said, I had another joke that I was like, I had it ready, and I was like, should I do this joke or should I not do this joke? I had the Todd Howard bit here because that was just funny after last year, but I had another Todd Howard joke ready to go as well. But ultimately, I was on such like, I felt like I was going so well that I was like, I don't want to interrupt this with a joke right now. I had a great time, my friend. Thank you, Jeff Keighley. I appreciate it. That is a great account name. I'm sure I will enjoy the VOD. I hope so. I did try to make it a viewing thing. Personal best friend of the channel, Jeff Keighley. And for anyone who was curious, after I mentioned the Todd Howard joke, I was gonna have Todd Howard jump on stage after mentioning Indiana Jones, and because I have the sound bites right here next to each other, I was gonna have Todd Howard jump on the stage and accept the award for Indiana Jones, even though there's no physical trophy.
It doesn't just work.
I'm sorry that it doesn't just work, but ultimately, you're not allowed on the stage here, Todd Howard. So, Cherry, would you please escort Todd off the stage?
You leave.
Thank you, Cherry. There you go. We did the bit. You got it afterwards. The buttons are literally under each other on the soundboard too. And they weren't even planned for that joke, but it just happened that they're right there. You leave, yeah. But yeah, I'm very happy with the whole thing. I'm glad that you commented on the ballot roll thing in the disclaimer section where I was like, I wonder if someone's gonna catch on to the sulfur bit. Crickets. But yeah, ultimately I'm very happy with how this all ran. And I was ready for some fuck ups and all that stuff. I'm so glad I had this thing with me. You'd have to have like a master's degree in English to catch up on that. So